Doesn't matter when, your first start is. Doesn't matter if you have to wait or if you go right now. You just want to get out there and get the first win and ultimately compete at a high level and give your team the best chance possible. It'll be a special moment, and obviously that's great to share with such a great player like John Elway. But definitely want to consider going out there and doing whatever I can do ultimately for the team.
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
Hey, guys. Great to see you.
Now, it is a great Friday because it is our very first Friday football fiesta, if you want to go that way, of 2024. It is Mornings with Sharp and Handley. It is Nick, it is Jimmy, and it is the Peterman with you on this Friday. And fellas,
the most important part.
We've got college football tomorrow. Not Nebraska, unlike 2 years ago when Nebraska was opening up. Gosh, it's crazy. It feels like that was longer ago. A lot has changed, but when Nebraska was the toast of the college football kickoff week 0, take it on Northwestern, and boy, have we put that one in the rear view mirror. But it'll be Florida State and Georgia Tech in Dublin at Aviva Stadium, and we're going to be talking about that in the next hour. But guys, I don't know about you, but so tomorrow is a nice little appetizer to get into college football. And as I was looking ahead to the Thursday lineup the following week, which to me, and I've said it several times in the show, there's part of me that actually gets more amped up for that Thursday than even the first full Saturday, because you do see several games. And this year, we will actually have not one, not two, not three, but 4 preseason ranked teams in action on that first Thursday, including your Jayhawks. We've also got Utah in there. We've got NC State in there. We've got, unfortunately, your most hated rivalry, Missouri, playing on that Thursday. But then we also get Colorado and North Dakota State. So tomorrow's the appetizer. Thursday's going to be a lot of fun the following Thursday. And Nebraska, unlike the last 2 years, not involved in tomorrow and they've been involved in week 0 previous year against Illinois.
What you're saying is they won't lose tomorrow.
They will not. They will go into the first week, into Labor Day weekend of college football, week 1, as a team that is still not showing an L in the column.
And that's the main takeaway here.
Positive. It is here. Guys, it is absolutely here. And I am all about it. And tomorrow's lineup, it's okay. Florida State's an interesting team.
It's better than the lineup 4 weeks ago. You know why?
It is, because they didn't have college
exactly.
football. That's right. That's a good way of looking at that one, Jimmy.
Look at that. I don't know what's gotten into me here.
Georgia Tech, yeah. We'll get into the lines a little bit. Actually, Brett Ciancia is going to be joining us right at 7:00 as we'll get into that
today.
I know we've got a loaded lineup.
If you're not joining us today, sorry, we didn't call.
Well, we had issues with Brian Edwards, as we typically talk to on Thursday, but he was able to clear some time for us today, get his weekend lines, because I know he had a lot of college football plays that he wants to help you make money. So we want to allow him to do so at the end of the show. So we'll talk to Brian Edwards. But we are, it is a college football loaded show today. Brett Ciancia of College Pick 6 Previews will be joining us right at 7. We'll be talking to voice of the Florida State Seminoles, Jeff Colhane, at 7:30, live from Dublin.
Your friend and our friend.
That's right. And it's actually, what time is it out there?
Let's see, 7 hours, 7 hour difference. So it's about 1 o'clock right now. All right. So he's been up for 8 hours. He's working.
It's probably his body's probably already used to the Dublin time.
Making the rounds, getting a horse so that Chief Osceola can ride onto that Aer Lingus field.
Sure, they've probably already taken in the splendor that is a soccer stadium where you're playing football. Eric McKinney, as we'll continue our friend or foe segment, USC on Nebraska's schedule. We will talk to Eric McKinney with wearesc.com right at 8 o'clock and get the very latest, including Pete Carroll back on campus in Los Angeles. How about that? Will he have any impact on Lincoln Riley and the things that are happening.
Wait, it's all legal now? Maybe I shouldn't have left.
Yeah, it's probably a good time if you're Pete Carroll to get back into college football coaching. But yes, he is teaching. He is going to be a professor.
Oh, Professor Pete.
Yes. Mike Schaefer going to join us. He's going to be actually at 8:30. And then we've got Matt Verzel at 9:20, Brian Edwards at 9:45. So it is loaded. We've got not one, but two guests pretty much every hour up until the first one. And it just happened that way. So
as my bedmate asked last night, so when are you guys going to actually talk about stuff? This is it.
Yeah, we got the first hour is pretty much that with
anything
a couple of
you have, Peter. This is the hour to get it all.
Couple segments in between. Peter, and you don't even have to do an update today. So
all right, well there we go.
It's like a Friday half day, if you will.
We have enough going on.
Yeah, there's a lot, and you know what?
Here's your update. Teams played last night. Some won, some lost.
There was a few baseball games.
There was
half the teams won, half of them lost. I'm sorry, Nick.
Sorry about the Guardians.
No, you're not.
But as a Royals guy,
you're smiling.
Am I?
This is a huge weekend.
This has turned into a much more exciting 3-team race than I thought it would be.
Okay, I did know this from the jump.
The difference a year makes
that Cleveland would not come even close to running away with this thing. And I also said this earlier in the week.
They're going to blow it. So,
well, they still could, because I did say this earlier in the week that if they get passed up at any point during this race,
it's over.
I still think that will make the wild card.
Oh, that's right. You did say wild card.
Yes,
think of the
but
Mariners.
They will
They're
not
done.
win the Central if they get passed up. So we could be coming back on the air on Monday, and Cleveland could have relinquished the lead in the AL Central, and then I'll say, well, they're not going to be able to.
Might I remind you, the Rangers blew the AL West last year to the Astros, and how did that all turn out?
Well, yeah, I mean, you get into the tournament
because they got out pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
The Rangers did. So that's what can happen. The Guardians blow the Central, if it happens, and they go into the playoffs pissed off, and they get on a heater.
They did,
just trying to manifest something.
Well, they did take on a very good Yankee team. They got one win in the Bronx. I guess I could take some solace in knowing that they didn't get swept there. But the Royals and the Twins were off yesterday, so big series starting today. Cleveland's got the aforementioned Texas Rangers in Cleveland at the stadium formerly known as the Jake. Then you've got the Royals and the Phillies. That's a big one there out at Kauffman Stadium.
1980 World Series rematch.
14 straight games against number one and their division teams.
Yeah.
So it's a tough stretch.
And they're still staying, this is where they have to stay afloat, because if you're going to catch, well, first of all, if you didn't know, the Twins and the Royals are exactly 2 games behind Cleveland.
Oh, they're right there.
So this weekend we might see 3 teams completely changing places in the American League Central. So, and then the Twins have the Cardinals. So
87 World Series rematch. I know the bad blood will be flowing.
Yeah, this is going to be. If you're an American League Central fan of any team other than the White Sox and the Tigers, this is a big weekend. Big weekend there. We had some bad preseason football.
Most of it is.
This is all over the board right now.
Believe me, I was not having fun watching Anthony last night.
Yeah,
I was expecting a little more.
Were you excited? He throw the first drive. He looks good. Well, first of all, you got to see it on Prime.
Yeah,
we got.
How'd my guy look last night? We saw Anthony play.
The Bean.
How'd Bean look?
I did not watch it long enough to watch him.
That answers my question.
No, the sigh was to indicate I think he played better than Anthony did against players that are very fringe final roster. Most of them probably not making final roster.
Well, it's just all over the board right now. You've got some
nobody get hurt.
We know that some teams are saying, hey, you know what? We're going to go ahead and play our starters. The Colts were one of them. Hey, they won the game. But because this happened with Chicago and Cincinnati before, where Caleb Williams was doing very well in that game. Well, at least he ended his time doing very well in that game. But you're keeping the context alive of you're playing the second and third stringers. Yes, this is it. Okay. And then
all right,
the Colts having the same thing against the Bengals. Bengals not playing a lot of guys. Anthony Richardson, as Peter mentioned, other than one solid drive, kind of crapped the bed. Just you know what he reminded me of, and this is again, I go with what I remember personally and things that I can't get out of my head, because when it comes back to Chicago Bears quarterback hell. a lot of things that he did yesterday reminded me of the things that Trubisky failed to do. And that is
I don't want to hear that.
Hitting and / missing wide open receivers. Like guys that are, okay, good route. Oh, they schemed it really well. Oh my gosh, it's the most elementary throw. And then airmail. Or
you'd have to be Yao Ming to catch that one. It'll be third down.
Cutting across. Oh, I'm going to go to throw it his shoelaces.
It was far from what I wanted to see aside from that first drive. But then I kind of thought of it from the perspective of, well, he plays well, better than he did last night. What's the reaction? Most of the public would probably say, oh, he was playing second, third, fourth string guys.
Yeah, don't worry. He'll blow it in the ninth.
Yeah, it would have been either, oh, he did well. Well, look who he was playing. But
no, he sucked. Look who he was playing.
He sucked. Well, look who he's playing. How is he going to do it against the real players? So it was kind of a lose-lose scenario, but he did not look nearly as polished as I was hoping. But I have to cut the guy some slack. He hasn't played a competitive rep in nearly a full calendar year, so it's going to take a little time. And
hey, he was very positive after the game.
Very, very
upbeat.
The team loves him, and they want him to do well. So we'll see if he can settle in a little bit.
Yay, friends.
Tonight you get the Falcons, Jags, Dolphins, Bucks, Raiders, Niners, and then the entire rest of the NFL wraps up preseason play on Saturday, including, it's all local here. We tie back to a number 15 wearing a green jersey, not Dylan Raiola, but Adrian Martinez, who will start.
Oh, let's go, Adrian. All
the
right.
first half goes to Adrian.
America's team.
And then the second half will go to the Wyoming rookie.
Oh.
No, but Adrian gets the start. And essentially this is going to be the
is this on television? I'll watch Adrian.
I think
it has to be.
So this is
tomorrow, right?
Yeah, tomorrow. Actually, it's not.
It's tonight. Should we have Big Red overreaction for Adrian's game?
See so you got two games tonight on the NFL Network: Jaguars, Falcons, and then Niners, Raiders. Yeah. As far as the Jets game,
it's like Buzz's girlfriend.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, and you would think, boy, Giants, Jets, even in the preseason would get some run, but no, nobody's picking up that one. Oh wait, I take it back. NFL Network.
Not
bad.
NFL Network. NFL Network.
6:30. 6:30. NFL Network.
6:30 before my bedtime.
So that is happening. So go, Adrian.
All right,
Adrian's got a legitimate shot to what I would say as a
make a team.
Well, yeah, and even as a practice squatter, maybe a practice squatter, maybe a guy that is, and being a practice squad guy, you know what?
Sign me up.
It is not a bad life.
Get paid, no CTE. What's there not to like?
What if they brought the minimum up? Let's see.
Probably. I mean,
practice.
Minimum wage
it was $3.50.
A little more than radio, just a little bit,
slightly. And if you think about,
Adrian has no problems getting endorsements.
You think about the overall workload that you have in a week of practice.
Workout, stay in shape, just pay attention, be around the guys.
They are okay. So players with 2 or fewer seasons in the NFL, which Adrian would qualify under that, are paid weekly at a fixed rate, which is $12,500 for the season. No, that can't be right.
Maybe in the 1950s.
That can't be right. I thought at one point it was for a veteran, the minimum salary is $16,000 weekly. Okay, weekly. So, okay, thank you.
Math.
Yeah, the way that was
times 52.
The way they were reading that, or at least wording that, was made no sense.
Husker Potato on the stream. First of all, fantastic name. Love it. Makes me want a delicious giant baked potato with all the stuff in it. Anyway, he says waterboarding myself sounds better than watching the Falcons and Jags. I'm going to have to go with Husker Potato here because when you said that, that's actually where my mind went. I was like, you know what? I haven't been waterboarded lately. Maybe this might be the night to try it. But then you said those other games. I think we'll be okay.
I mean,
also good morning to all our streamers.
Preseason has not been great in the last several years. Again, I made mention week 3 was the one you'd always say, all right, cool, because that's the dress rehearsal. And if you have any newcomers to your team, you're just like, hey, this is cool.
First game forecast.
Yeah, 82. 82.
Chilly.
That's what I'm talking about. But now that
feel like Gary's apartment.
People, unless you're a rookie, unless you're someone that is trying to make the 53-man roster, which again, other than, like Adrian Martinez, for us, we're really curious and we're rooting them on. But as far as the NFL viewing nation, you don't care.
No.
And it's
nobody get hurt.
It's just so scattered of like when you're actually going to play your starters and when you're not. Some are playing their starters. Most aren't. So when you are playing your starters, you like to say, okay, I want to see my starters, how they do against other starters. Gives me a little bit of a measuring stick.
Your case have Caleb for one pass and then we're good.
It's football. I mean, that's all it is.
Yeah,
football. It's football. So if you want to watch football and you're cool with just like watching guys that, again, are very good at one point, great college football players, and are trying to make a roster. That's
a reality TV show. They're trying to get a rose from the coach.
Or less than 2 weeks away from the start of the NFL season. Then that's what you have to cling to.
Yeah.
But we are less than 24 hours. Actually, we're about a little more than 24 hours away from the start of college football.
We're single-digit days away from Husker football.
8 days.
8. That's less than 10.
8 days. Yeah, the Terry, by the way, in the Equitable Bank inbox, where they take banking personally.
Hi, Terry.
Terry says, wow, the Northwestern game was only 2 years ago, yet seems like a million miles ago. It's definitely 3 head coaches ago.
Not kidding.
We've been through a lot. Hopefully the journey is worth it. P.S. It's really dark out now. Yeah, it is.
It is.
There was a time that it seemed so long ago that I'd be driving into work and it was
daytime.
You'd be able to see your golf ball. Right now you can't.
Now you can't even see
it's dark.
Never mind.
It is dark. But Terry's right. That's when I was texting back and forth with Jeff Culhane. And I just remember our media corps getting ready to go out and cover this game. And this was exciting. I mean, I didn't go.
Talking about the Ireland game? Oh, I was going to say, whoa.
People were,
they sent you.
People were, bringing families because they were just kind of morphing it into, we're just going to make this a vacation.
Educational trip.
We're going to bring, my wife and I always wanted to go to Ireland. So this is great because we could probably get most of it paid for or written off if you work for a company that would do that. Or at least with your tax man, you could maybe write off some expenses. So there was a lot of people that I know they got out there. You always wonder, okay, when are you going to, people are like, okay, we're getting there on Tuesday. We're getting there on Wednesday. But once everybody had settled in, you got a lot of the same stories, people doing the Guinness tour, people, going all over the place, just checking out Dublin. And it was a very, it was an educational trip. You got to see
Huskers are going to play well, probably beat Northwestern because they do.
Yeah. And if
they're going to kick off normally,
people forget that season of the importance of it, because remember, that was the year that we knew Scott Frost came in with the adjusted salary. As far as there was incentives there. So Trev,
you better win, dude.
Yeah, basically Trev had put
that's how he sounded.
Scott Frost on notice of, we like you. And he even said before that year, Trev had said, we like you. We haven't,
but
most times we would probably go a different direction. But since we're kind of on the fence, we're going to go ahead and we're going to play the loyalty card. You were one of us. And we're going to make that matter. But
you lose to a directional.
Well, we need this thing to look the part. And I just remember going into that year that you looked at the path, because a lot of what we're doing in 2024 is the schedule on the front half of the season and how Nebraska can make some hay there. Remember, Northwestern, the previous year, Nebraska had just absolutely demolished them.
We were at that game.
Smoked them in Lincoln. And they weren't expected to be any better. I mean, you still had Ryan Helinski, who was not a good quarterback. So you're looking at Nebraska Northwestern. I don't know many people who took Northwestern to win that game, yet we know what happened. North Dakota, Nebraska's going to win that game. Georgia Southern, Nebraska's going to win that game. So they might
start out 11-0 here going into the Iowa game.
3-0 in that big marquee matchup against Oklahoma, where Oklahoma returns the favor and travels to Lincoln after what was a pretty good showing the year before between Nebraska and OU and Norman.
So now they're going to go 4-0.
Well, or at least that game was going to have 2 unbeaten.
Scott Frost for governor at that point.
And then we remember, if Nebraska were to lose that game, they would have the bye week and then a chance to really get right, because then there's another stretch of games.
Indiana coming up.
Indiana, Rutgers, and Purdue.
Them. 6-1.
So 6-1. Right. And then Illinois.
7-1.
And then Minnesota.
8-1.
Michigan.
I don't
comes
know.
November 12th. Then Wisconsin, then Iowa. So in a very similar way.
No, wait. Wisconsin was at home. 9-2. They're 9-2 going into that Iowa game.
Yeah, the Wisconsin game, remember, is super cold.
At this point, Scott Frost has multiple wives because the state has changed rules to allow him whatever he wants.
Nebraska had really I mean, they had that game. But again, that was, to Terry's point, that was with a different coaching staff because you had Mickey Joseph leading the team at that point. But that was the crazy thing, is looking at that schedule where there was, because
this is our year.
They did beat Rutgers. They did beat Indiana. They lost to Purdue in a shootout. That was the first of the Trey days when Trey just had himself a day, but unfortunately not everybody else around him did, including the defense. But Illinois is really good that year. That was the game that Matt Rule apparently had attended to see if this is for him. It was a very unseasonably warm day.
It was low 70s.
Right around Halloween.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I mean, we always, they play Minnesota, they lose. So they lost to Minnesota. But I mean, if you look at that schedule on paper, I think people did think Illinois would be okay. I don't know if people thought they would be as good, but Indiana and Rutgers, two games that Nebraska won, and even Purdue, I don't think people were thinking Purdue was going to be this wagon, which Purdue. The score would indicate that, that was a close enough game. It's always amazing
that was
when we go into a season.
Trey game, right?
What's that?
The first time I heard F, I would just throw it to Trey.
Yep. Just throw it to Trey in the Purdue game, and then the Iowa game. At least they ended the season with the win against Iowa. But I mean, I'm not bringing this up for the simple fact that I remember the misery, but remember the schedule in a year that was extremely important for Scott Frost in a prove-it year.
It looked good.
That this wasn't like it was going to be a murderous stretch. And the toughest game that you had in your first 7 was going to be at home, where you were hoping that you had built yourself up with 1 conference win and 3 total wins to be 3-0 going into that thing. We know 1 and 2 was definitely not in the cards. And, of course, then there were, as I mentioned, after the Oklahoma game, the bye week, that's when everyone thought, well, after the Georgia Southern game, he's not going to be coaching anymore, but maybe he coaches in the Oklahoma game so then they can bring down that buyout from 14 to 7.
But also, like, nonsense. We have plenty of money.
Well, and remember, Big Noon was always going to be there, and so it was a situation of, well, we don't want the narrative to be, Scott Frost's job status. We just don't want that to be an issue. We just want it to be about, hey, he's no longer the head coach here, and so that was worth $7 million. Maybe it was good, maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
Scott's like, hell yes, it was worth $7 million.
So. Man, that's, again, as Terry brings it up, it feels like that was forever
Walking
ago.
Out of Lincoln like Scrooge McDuck, just throwing money up in the air.
I feel bad for even bringing that up because this
No, you're being positive.
And this college football season for Nebraska is supposed to be about new beginnings, better things ahead, being able to actually look at a schedule that gives you some opportunities early on, but actually taking advantage of it too. But it's always interesting to remind ourselves of a schedule alone, when you look at schedules of, like their schedule, doesn't always go as planned. Now, obviously, Matt Rule in a much better situation and position in year 2 than Scott Frost, with essentially his job on the line, feeling all the pressure in the world, had play calling responsibilities taken away from him. He had new coaches on staff, including the guy who was calling the plays, who I never felt those two got probably, or at least saw eye to eye. I don't know if they probably didn't hang out a lot either. But
no, they didn't play Golden Tee together.
Mark Whipple didn't wear shoes.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
He did have I don't know if it was both of his feet, but he did have a foot thing. But yeah.
Well, I know he had a foot thing, but even if he didn't, he'd be like, look, he's living the Jimmy Buffett lifestyle, warm weather.
That was interesting when he first came out and did a presser and he didn't have shoes on. We're like, what's going on here?
He's like, I'm old. I don't care. When you get to this age,
that's kind of how I chalked it up to.
You hope you have pants on.
That is kind of what I chalked it up to. So yes, I feel like Nebraska fans, anytime we talk Aer Lingus Classic or we talk about a game in Dublin, there was always that excitement of, man, this is going to be such a cool experience. Remember, it was supposed to actually be Nebraska, Illinois, and then COVID ruined that.
Oh, I remember when they announced it at the previous Northwestern game, and you got so much Killigans.
It was going to be exciting, and then all of a sudden, then this Nebraska Northwestern, it happens. Everyone was excited. What could go wrong? And well, we know the answer to that one. And
I said the same about the same weekend too.
We just don't like success.
I started 2 days later thinking that'll be 2 days after a Husker game. That'll be fun. They'll be all right. They'll win. I really thought that they'll win. This will be a good time. So we had just moved here, and we were with some family watching the game on that Saturday. It was an early game, so that was good. Did a little bit of both. Listen to my buddy Greg Sharp call the game on the radio for a little bit, so enjoyed some of that. And then when the onside kick happened, it's like, did that just happen? Followed by, they're going to lose this game. Followed by, wait, I think the Zone has a post-game show. We should pull that up. Boy, did we ever. So, yeah. And then you started 2 days later to that fiasco.
It was
inauspicious. A sign?
Yeah, I remember. Just again, very ironic because I'm going to be golfing with him today too. I remember golfing with Ben McLaughlin the next day because he did not make the trip. And I remember both of us just trying to rationalize what we saw and trying to do everything we could to say, this doesn't mean the end of the season, right? Like, this is still going to be a good year, right? Like, maybe
someone else.
I remember walking away from that game thinking, because remember, Eric Chenander and the defense the previous year were pretty good. They got Nebraska in a lot of positions to win football games. The 3-9, the greatest 3-9 team ever.
Naturally, they're going to be better.
Yeah, I thought at the very least they would be pretty solid. And I'm watching Ryan Helinski it was death by 1,000 paper cuts over the Ryan Helinski right arm. I just remember thinking, oh man, whoever's developing Ryan Helinski, good on you. I mean, you are. Maybe Helinski will be good. Oh yeah, he was awful the rest of the year. That was the anomaly of the Ryan Helinski experience at Northwestern, is that he got the best of Nebraska and then just didn't from that point on. So if the biggest part of the memories of people, their initial excitement about that game and that experience to just an absolute nightmarish beginning and what it led to. I just don't know for Nebraska fans tuning in tomorrow that this Florida State Georgia Tech game will be like, oh God, I remember being there. That was awesome.
It'll trigger them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they'll be like, you know what? They ran out of beer, so guess where I'm going? The fridge.
There'll be a little PTSD there, I think. But the good news is, and there's very good news, is that led to set the events that now have transpired, set that in motion of what we hope will now finally be the adults at the table and the team that can do what, again, that this program is thirsting to do. But yeah, anytime we're talking the Aer Lingus Classic or talking about a game like that, it's just, there is way, way more memories that I think are not the best for
You think
Nebraska
they'll play
fans.
that game again one day?
No.
I didn't think so either.
There's too much trauma.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trauma there.
You can do neutral site games in this country too.
I just remember the buildup was so exciting though.
Well, yeah.
Not because it was Northwestern or anything.
It was Ireland.
But
U2's from Ireland.
Man.
At least the traveling fans got some free beer when the system went down.
Yeah, there's that.
They did. I mean, yeah, they deserved it.
That certainly probably helped.
And they had them coming out of IVs. You could go
and you
hook up to a line.
You remember Pat Fitzgerald trolling Nebraska after the game too. When he spoke to their fan base afterwards when they won, said that was a culture win. Essentially saying our culture is so far better than what they have on that other sideline. And you know what?
But he wasn't wrong.
No, as much as you wanted to say, jerk,
he's right.
Sometimes truth hurts. And the truth did hurt.
And that's why Matt Rule today is trying to establish, well, not trying, he is establishing a different culture. And you see it in the Chasing Three, and you see it in everything that he says, and how we talk about everything is calculative. And when you bring up that game 2 years ago and all that, if anything, this is where I'm putting a positive spin on this. This isn't to take people back there to be triggered. This is to actually give a little more reflection in the name of appreciation for where things are right now.
Yeah, I can't think of that game
Things
tomorrow.
are moving swiftly in the right direction.
I can't think of Florida State, Georgia Tech being in Dublin, Ireland, and how much run that's going to get, and you're going to see all the shots of a beautiful place, and not think about that. But if you truly do believe this year will be different, we'll see Nebraska return to a bowl game, you'll see a product on the field that you're proud of, that memory was extremely important to get to where Nebraska can be here in 2024.
There you go, Nick. If they win 34-3 that day, if they go 10-2 or 9-3, whatever we said, there is no Matt Rule at Nebraska.
Right.
Somebody else is lucky enough to hire him, and guess what? He's doing a hell of a job there. He has that school poised to take some big steps here in year 2 and into year 3. It just turns out that school now is Nebraska.
It is just crazy to think about that schedule, though, what Nebraska did have. And
Yeah, if this team had that schedule.
And I think that's another real positive about the 2024 season is, can you take advantage of it? Because think about Billy Napier and what they're dealing with in Florida. A guy that is on the hot seat, a guy that most feel will be the first Power 4 coach to get fired either in season or during the year. They do not have a easy or even manageable schedule. I mean, if they go 6-6, if I'm the athletic director there, I'm pretty impressed with that.
That stretch starting with Georgia and Jacksonville is
insane.
One of the more insane 5 to 6 game stretches I've ever seen.
Well, and they get Miami out of the gate too. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, no disrespect to Northwestern because they've had Nebraska's number.
But they're not Miami.
But yeah.
You heard it here first.
It's very, very, very different.
Similar cost and tuition, much different culture. I'm talking about the school.
Keegan does bring up a good point, though. He goes, didn't Pat get fired for culture?
He did.
Yeah,
he did.
that whole this was a culture win thing that probably didn't age very well for old Patty Fitz.
Haven't heard much about that.
And Keegan's right.
In a while. What's going on with that?
Thank you for your dedication. You bet, Keegan. It's all about team.
So everything that we kick off starting tomorrow and roll right into the season, I have a tough time forgetting about how awful that feeling was. And then
we had to do a show Monday.
Well,
so you had to make some sort of sense of that.
Yeah. And that was the thing is it was so hard to comprehend because there was a lot of the same stuff and you just felt like Nebraska was over it. The big question is how would Scott Frost handle the sideline without being involved in the play call? And then when you see, hey, I'm going to make a very important decision like that.
You call him sick Monday.
And then it's like, ooh, that's no good. Well, and this was a thing too. You brought up that, you started that following Monday. There was a time
people forget
that Nebraska, when they would lose, people in our business would be like, damn, Monday's going to be fun because people are going to lose their mind.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to be, because it doesn't happen
that
much.
It happens once a year.
So you overanalyze it, you overthink it, you just have to go through every layer of it.
They'll still win the Big 12, but I don't know about that national championship.
Yeah.
That's tough now.
Now, and this is why I've said this many, many times where I think Nebraska fans have been so humbled and so beaten down.
This is why I don't think they'll be that obnoxious if they start 7-0. It'll actually be kind of a treat.
When you lose games now, it's exhausting because it is usually spinning out the same thing with maybe just a different opponent, but it's usually the same things that happen.
How many people go outside and mow during
right? It is, and that's the thing. Like, how many
fridge.
people have turned off games in the third or fourth quarter, even in a game that was relatively close, because they already feel they know because they've been scoring. They know how this thing is going to end. When that onside kick happened, Nebraska was still winning.
You went to Vallis. Oh,
but people knew at that point it was like, okay, slow start, but here we go. Finally, I think we're in control. And then all of a sudden, onside kick, Northwestern recovers, and you're thinking, they're going to lose this game.
I'm going to go get a turkey.
I know how this goes.
At the store.
That's the narrative that I'm hoping this 2024 season. And we'll get into Omaha World Herald. They've got their season preview out, and we'll tell you what their official record was. Evan and Sam sat down and they went game by game. By the way, like their little they did a little check thing. It's just good to see a check written down, by the way. But they did the checks and balances part. That was the theme of this. Will the check clear or will it not clear? It was very, very creative on their part.
That sounds like my first radio job when they told me to cash in my paycheck, but that's a different story. That was not here.
Have you ever worked for the old Omaha Beef? Because that was always an issue.
I did some games against them.
But the whole thing with Nebraska now is, can you put yourself in a position in 2024, whether we're talking about 7 wins, 8 wins, maybe more, maybe less? Well, less, this probably wouldn't help this particular discussion, but can you get yourself in a position to where you are playing in the fourth quarter in a tight game and you have the answers? So people know when maybe there is that little adverse moment or that potential turning point moment in a game that you have now started to build up some equity to where the fans trust you again. The fans trust what the result will be because you've got a tough-minded team. This goes back to culture. This goes back to the coaches, but also the players, that they have finally put that in the rearview mirror. To me, 2024, yes, is about wins. But from the standpoint of
most years are.
How people, you use that example from Dublin when the onside kick took place, but Nebraska was still up 2 scores, that you knew
you didn't need
it was going to happen. You knew they were going to lose. And even in the following week against North Dakota, it was 7-7 at halftime. And Scott Frost, Connor and I were talking about this yesterday.
Even Bison.
Scott Frost was interviewed at halftime quickly with the BTN crew, and he's like, "It's bad. I mean, that's where people immediately go to. I mean, in their head is it's bad as soon as something happens late in the game that you just think, oh God, here it comes. That to me is also what this season is about, is to build up that equity to where you can say, they'll be fine. They got
They'll
it.
be fine. They know
They
what
can
they're
go
doing.
from, oh
Relax.
God, here it comes to they've got this.
Dylan make a couple throws, will be fine.
And that might be one of the big answers right there.
Maybe they'll call big play for him, get a run going, get him out of the pocket, just something.
I mean,
that's where people are
more. It's more than just wins. I think it is building the trust factor back up
there
with this football team and its fan base. And when things get a little dicey, a little hairy,
and it's leadership.
Absolutely,
I mean, there's not many nice things we
matters.
say about Matt Rule. Fans are so but I need to see it in the game.
Yep, all that stuff.
And Rule would say, "No, you're right. I agree. We're going to try."
As we mentioned, our guest list, which is it's very lengthy today.
Brett
Cianci at 7:00. Jeff Colhane, voice of the Florida State Seminoles, at 7:30. We'll talk USC football with Eric McKinney as we continue our friend or foe segment. That's at 8. Mike Schaefer of Husker 24/7 Sports is at 8:30. Former Husker Matt Verzel at 9:20. And then we'll wrap things up with Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider, at 9:45. And that lineup is powered by the Rooferys at John Higgins Weather Guard. He's getting his money worth today. Also, you can hit us up on the 42-degree hotline at 402-951-1620, 42 degrees the source by your mom's house. Equitable Bank inbox open for you, where they take banking personally. I am Handley at 1620thezone.com. He is Jimmy with a Y. Do we even need to say that anymore? It's Jimmy. Jimmy at 1620thezone.com.
Shout out to the other Jimmy.
And the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed. You can tweet the show at Handley, at Nick Handley 1620, or at Mornings with Sharp and Handley, right?
No, just Sharp and Handley.
Oh, okay.
Just Sharp and Handley.
At Sharp and Handley is the ways you can get involved in the conversation today. A lot to get to. When we come back, okay, so there is something that I'm excited to kind of see starting tomorrow when it comes to football. New things in college football in 2024. Obviously, the biggest change is the playoff.
All of it.
But as far as things in game that we will start to see as early as tomorrow, want to get into maybe the more intriguing thing when it involves 2 rule changes. Also, I know the guys on the Connor Happer show, and I believe USC also talked about this too, but the most perfect Colorado collective story that just,
involve a dispensary?
No, necessarily not.
That would be
that would be good, but this is actually involving Saudi money.
Oh, that's even better.
Does Kirk Ferentz yesterday taking some ownership of the violation? And as we embark on another college football season, I'm sure you guys all have your either first, best, maybe both, college football memory. And there's one to me that is the most random one, and it actually does involve Colorado, but not against Nebraska, that we will share with you. Well, we're going to do this all throughout the show. And then I wanted to get to this yesterday, didn't get to it, but there was the only thing that, for me anyway, I'm not an avid Little League World Series viewer until we get to the final weekend. The Little League coach that called out Aaron Judge, I got some comments for this guy.
What you said in this email here, I'm going to say I agree with you before even knowing the story.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. We're happy you're with us. It's a Friday. It's a football Fiesta Friday, which we are so happy we're back. It is Jimmy and Nick and the Peterman here on 1620 The Zone. So one thing that I know we will be watching intently when it comes to when Nebraska kicks things off a week from tomorrow against Utah. Man, that just sounds good. A week from tomorrow. I mean, it'd be even better if we're saying kickoff tomorrow, but jeez.
We'll go by that.
We've made it. 8 days, folks. 8 days. Get your heads up. This is great. But speaking of heads and helmets, helmet technology is obviously a big thing. Now, I love this because I think anything you can do to prepare quarterbacks, defensive players on the communication process that they will hopefully strive to experience when they get to the next level, because hopefully that they are good enough to be at the next level, that this just helps that process a little bit more. I'm sure the NFL loves the fact that college football is doing this as well. They'll know how to be able to look and process, the MacBooks on the sideline, the iPads on the sideline, and be able to go over communication with their position coach or with their OC or whoever they're going to be, not having to pick up the old phone and talk. I don't even know if they have those things. Anymore, they just put on headsets.
The Xeroxes that used to print out, and they'd go look at the Xeroxes on the sideline.
I always like when they just had the dial pad phone. Oh. They'd pick up the phone and they'd be talking to the press box. Mm-hmm. Now they just put on a headset. But I think all of that communication is obviously very beneficial for the NFL, because this is one less thing that is going to be such a culture shock to them when they get to that part of it. But for game management, this is going to be really, really interesting. And it's been talked about a lot now. Nebraska and the actual company that is providing this communication actually is housed in Lincoln. So they tried this even as early as last year. It was a big part of spring when they knew it was coming down, but they even did some of this in the previous spring and kind of messed around with it in the fall. Good. The thing I like about Nebraska is they always get an idea of when things are coming down the pike that they're going to be ready.
Look at field turf. For as much crap as it gets now, when it came out, it was really a huge step. Yeah. 1999. And
now look who's ready to pivot to grass.
Yeah.
Because it's deemed more safe.
Which is all better than the AstroTurf, which That's all true. Of us of a certain age, if you've ever been tackled on that.
I would say that I think this is going to be an interesting thing to watch tomorrow on the pace, how quickly teams want to move in and out defensively. And we've heard Tony White and Rob Dvorak, because I believe it's Rob Dvorak that is going to be on the actual comm system, that they don't feel it's going to be a very big impact defensively, because a lot of what the offense is showing them looks-wise, that's going to kind of impact what a defense does as far as alignment. So them being able to communicate that with a linebacker is probably not going to be as a dramatic change as it will for the offense. That part of it is interesting to me, because as we've talked about, if there are things that need to improve for Nebraska this year, and we talked about a lot of the issues on the field, the sideline and the game management is something that Matt Rule and his staff, especially inside 2 minutes, the timeout situation, when to take one, decisions when things get a little frantic as you are wrapping up a half. Those things, communication-wise, amongst Matt Rule and his staff, need to improve. How will the just overall ability to communicate with your quarterback and making sure that they're getting in and out of the position correctly, and now we know it's going to be Marcus Satterfield that's going to be in the ear of Dylan Raiola, how will that work? And how will a 19-year-old process that? But also being able to see that tomorrow. How will DJU be able to process that? That's a lot of the intrigue of the helmet technology. I think, Jimmy, and maybe you guys feel different, but Jimmy, I think by week 3, we will have forgotten that they even have it.
No, it's usually what happens.
Like, that's
what are they going to do?
And
and then you don't notice it.
Yeah.
You just get used to it.
Unless someone is like, I think they have a comm issue and it's brought up. And like, they got to switch out the helmets.
Just like
or
the
something.
days where there's not going to be one ESPN. There's going to be two. Two? A second one? They might air game. Wait, I don't have that channel. When do I get that channel?
The bigger thing, I think, is going to be the 2-minute warning.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going.
Yeah, the 2-minute warning, I think, is going to be
because that got me on the video game. It's like, 2-minute warning?
Well,
Am I playing Madden?
We've seen, and this goes back, this spans to previous coaching staffs. I remember Mike Riley in the Illinois game that first year. It was not very good. The time management, and yes, I know sometimes there are plays that are called where you're supposed to drain more clock and you don't end up doing that, and that can be on the player. It wasn't necessarily the coach, but at the end of the day, it all falls on the coach and the situation that you put your team in. even if it was the player going a little bit rogue on you. But I think that there is a very interesting part of the 2-minute warning, and what Matt Rule said about this the other night on Sports Nightly, the amount of data that they collect and the essentially literature that they are just going over when it comes to 2-minute warnings and how to handle those situations of, well, you got an extra timeout in your bag. So how do you go ahead and use that? Does that make you a little bit more free to use that timeout in a time you're like, that losing that timeout could hurt them? Or does it make you feel a little too safe because you've got that backstop of the 2-minute warning if you do need to stop the clock? If you are looking to run out the clock, does it hurt you in any situations? How Nebraska, in particular, college football, yes, but as this is a Nebraska conversation, because there was one area last year that you're like, boy, Matt Rule, you'd like to see be a little bit better. It was handling those late game situations and the organization of what they were trying to do in those late game situations and getting on the same page. Will the 2-minute warning have an impact one way or the other? Will it help or will it hurt? Because I think you can make an argument for both, that it could definitely do that depending on how teams are, how they're addressing it. And it sounds like, I'll give Matt Rule a lot of credit. It sounds like they have kicked over every stone when it comes to that. But
I believe it.
Until you see it not be a problem, that will remain a point of intrigue for me, more so than the helmet communication, the 2-minute warning, because there you're talking about late game or at least end of half situations that, to me, can be very. I mean, if we assume that this team is going to be a lot of close games, how you manage those situations are huge.
Better summed up: just play better and win games. That's all encompassing. Just do better things, score more points than the other team, win games. Yeah, which I joke, but it's kind of what we talk about. Just be better at all those things that you take for granted.
I think there's going to be games.
I think they will.
That Nebraska, you could fumble that situation, if you will, and it won't hurt them. But yeah, I think early on, and that's why that Colorado game, it looms large because I tend to think that that's going to be a close game. That
I think Nebraska blows them out.
How you handle that's interesting.
That's not a homer. I just think they blow. I think that crowd is, and Gary's talked about it. You've talked about what it's going to be like that Saturday night. Yeah,
it'll be nuts.
But I get the nerves because you kind of mentioned this earlier. There's a lot of PTSD from past years. So they say we want to believe we should, but then it doesn't happen. And this is what leads to a lot of even yesterday on the stream, people said, if we lose a Colorado game, it's over.
And it's not.
And that's just that's right. Just an example of an opinion. But this is why that game is so important, because that's sort of how people are feeling right now. They want to completely go all in. They just for once want to see, hey, it's happening. And that'll be that first night where you really start to be like, To me, not trying to poo-poo the UTEP game, but come on. We're all thinking about that game week 2.
This is, in a way, very similar to 2016 Nebraska, where they had Oregon come into town.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good one.
You had a situation where Nebraska had a game that was marked on the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
You had a game that that was obviously very significant from a brand standpoint too, that when it came to what Nebraska was trying to do as a program in year 2 under Mike Riley, that regardless of how strong that Oregon team was going to be, you needed to look good. There were a lot of eyeballs. It was an ABC televised, a 2:30 game, a lot of eyeballs.
Brand intrigue.
Yep. And it was a great game. I mean, it was fantastic. It was back and forth. Tommy, all of a sudden, with just a nails play and a huge conversion, leads to
Herbert,
a touchdown. Right? Actually, no, it was
pre-Herbert.
Yeah, who the hell?
It was a long time. Damn, I can't remember.
I'm trying to remember.
For some reason, I had Herbert on the mind.
And I know now Justin Herbert beat Nebraska.
It wasn't him that game.
Oh, it was
Prokop.
Prokop,
Prokop,
Dakota Prokop. That's who it was. Yeah,
that's right.
14 of 23, 146 yards.
Right. It was the following year that Nebraska got Justin Herbert, got Herberted, if you will. But there was always going to be that feeling of big game. It's Oregon. Don't really care what type of team they have that year. It's a brand, got to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And what that led to, and there's some correlation there. What it led to was a 7-0 start for Nebraska. I think this Colorado team
you did there
has a little bit more top-end talent, according to Field Yates' most recent mock draft.
I mean, they got dudes.
2 of the top 11 players taken in the draft belong to Colorado. Travis Hunter is a very good player. Shedeur Sanders is a very good player. But the continuity, the consistency, Nebraska returns plenty on their own and feels a little bit more like it's a second-year team as opposed to Colorado, where it feels like they're kind of starting over again. But you win that game, you feel pretty damn good about the trajectory of the season. But if they were to lose, is all lost? No, because you got to consider the context of who you have in the most important position and the growth that you hope continues to take place throughout the season.
Well, you have no choice at that point. Be like, all right, pick up the pieces. Let's go.
Right.
Get better.
We're going to talk about this weekend slate and some games coming up as we get fully into college football. Hour 2 is loaded. We're going to talk to Brett Ciancia of Pick 6 Previews and the voice of Florida State football, Jeff Colhane. That is all coming up in Hour 2. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley, Jimmy and Nick and Peter on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, 1620 The Zone is celebrating the first Nebraska game of the year with its annual Red Out Week. It's happening right now. You're in the middle of it. You'll get the most comprehensive Husker coverage from Sharp and Handley, which is this show, by the way, if you're scoring at home, the Connor Happer Show, and Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Anything that you have on the station, any show. And don't miss the Red Out Week Roundtable Lunch next Thursday, August 29th at Oscars at Lakeside Plaza. It's out center, about 175th or so. Red Out Week is brought to you by Union Bank and Trust. Get all the details at 1620thezone.com. Pizza and wings with your favorite Zone personalities and anybody that is employed by this building next Thursday at Oscars at Lakeside Plaza.
The guy that I'm sure, well, I mean, we're all excited about week 0, week 1, whatever it is, college football being back, but the guy who gets into it does it as good as anybody, in fact, better than most. Brett Ciancia with Pick 6 Previews joining us as we get our regular appearances from Brett Ciancia, so you know it means it is college football season. Brett, good morning. How are you, my man?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on, and great to be back on my Football Friday spot here on 1620. Really feels like football season, and it's been a long off season, a lot of preseason talk, so I can't wait to talk about actual games again.
All right, so we were just talking about the biggest change, obviously, is the college football expanded playoff, which is going to be fun. We can get into a lot of the implications of that, of what that will mean throughout the season when we see something as simple as AP weekly rankings. But I was bringing this up, Brett. Now, I'm curious where this is on your radar of 2 rule changes when it comes to the 2-minute warning now in effect, and also the helmet technology in the communication system. What do you think has a bigger impact or any more weight on any given Saturday?
Yeah, well, these are 2 moves that move college more into the NFL territory, the 2 NFL rules, and we continue to just NFLization of college football.
I like that.
I like them. Yeah. I like them to be unique things. I mean, I was always drawn to college football because of its uniqueness to the game on Sunday. But it is what it is. They're moving towards that, and I think out of the 2 rules, the helmet technology will be the bigger change. The 2-minute drill, the 2-minute warning is just one timeout at the end of the game. That'll help, but the helmet technology, we don't know how this is going to go with 18 to 21-year-olds having that much connectivity to the coordinator up in the booth and the head coach on the sidelines. I don't know how it'll be like in a up-tempo, hyper-tempo offense like Lane Kiffin or Josh Heupel's Tennessee offense. So it's going to change a lot, I think. And, we'll see who harnesses that technology the best.
We've talked endlessly about the new era of college football, and yet it's here. But yet when the games kick off, Nick and I were kind of talking in the last segment of something else, but I kind of wonder, yes, it is going to be a change, Brett, but at the same time, once the games start, we're just watching college football again. Is that fair?
Yeah, very fair. Once the ball is kicked off, it's the same game we always loved. Now some of the pairings will be different. I mean, now instead of seeing Ohio State and USC in the Rose Bowl in a bowl game, that'll be a conference matchup. So, it unlocks a lot of new conference games and rivalries. I think you're going to have some exciting title races too with these expanded conferences. There's no divisions anymore, for better or for worse, but that just means it's a lot more randomized schedules, and I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. It'll still feel the same, but it'll definitely be different in the amount of matchups, and the race to get to the conference title will be different without divisions.
I've mentioned this a few times in the last couple of months of when the calendar flips from October to November and we see that first, top 25. If you are in that top 25, unlike every other year, you are still a part of the conversation that includes a path to a national championship, because technically if you get into the college football playoff, you at least have that opportunity. Does that all of a sudden put a little bit more weight, even going as early as October, of when top 25s are coming out each week, that you're looking at teams, and if you are hanging on there in the top 25, that you legitimately have a shot to be a part of the conversation depending on how your November ultimately goes?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, I was somewhat of a critic of the playoff expansion at first because I was always loving the old regular season, the magnitude of these regular season games.
Mm-hmm.
Think of an Ohio State versus Oregon this year. It could be a potential 1-2 game in October. And I was thinking, wow, I mean, that game used to be for all the marbles, but now, these teams can afford multiple losses. Now, I grant you that, but to your point, it does add back a lot of additional games that might not have mattered as much in the past. So now teams with 1, 2, or even 3 losses, they're still in the mix, and those games now bring on even more importance. So there's pros and cons to it for sure. I agree with you that more teams will be involved at the table there heading into November. You got to do a little loss counting, where I think in the Big Ten, if you finish 10-2, you're probably in the playoff. So then you start to think about, you work backwards from there. How can you get to 10 wins?
Yeah.
And, so yeah, I think it adds back a lot of extra games that we never would have considered to have playoff or championship value, that they're now back in the mix. So yeah, it's going to be a wild ride, guys. More fan bases involved in November. I think that's a good thing.
Talking with Brett Ciancia of Pick Six Previews. You can order it right now. I highly recommend you do it. It is fantastic. And Brett, it is an interesting point, because I'm with you. I was kind of sad about now you're sort of watering down. Well, you're not sort of, you are watering down the regular season. But then I got to thinking, November, with similar to pennant races, there could be a lot of teams in it, and I kind of embrace that. I was like, okay, let's see what this is about.
Yeah, I'm open to it. I think it'll be a unique system. A couple problems I do have are how big the conferences are, and I say that only because we're going to finish with a lot of ties. And we saw a little bit in the Big 12 last year. They went divisionless and had 14 teams. And if you remember back in November, there was all these tweets and talks about 1,000 different tiebreaker scenarios, because there's just not enough games in a season to play everybody. So you don't have the head-to-head card anymore without divisions. So that was one example, but now think of an 18-team conference, the Big Ten, or 16 or 17, the SEC, ACC. So I think we're going to finish with a lot of tiebreakers, unfortunately, and that's just not as exciting to me as settling it on the field through a division and winning your division, getting to a title game. So, some small tweaks there, but otherwise I agree that it's going to be a lot more stake later in the season.
Brett, the game tomorrow, the Aer Lingus Classic, obviously Florida State's an interesting team. I'm not trying to say or dismiss what Georgia Tech brings to this game, but more curious about if Florida State wins, and obviously Vegas would say they will, what Florida State looks like they have in front of them for a season that came so close to finishing in the college football playoff a year ago. We know there are different faces in key positions there, but as far as Florida State, what are you looking for tomorrow in this game?
Yeah, well, the big question is DJU at quarterback. We can't really get around it. That's really the key topic for Florida State this year, because everywhere else they have a fully stocked roster. I mean, the defensive line is loaded again. Linebackers bring a couple starters back. Corners and safeties, they had some of the best transfers in the country the last couple of years. So I like the defense. The offensive line also brings back 3 starters, and Alex Atkins does a great job building big lines. So they're stocked everywhere. It's just all about quarterback, because you've seen DJU struggle at Clemson for multiple years. Went out to Oregon State, and he won some games, but the stats weren't nice either. So can he realize his 5-star potential finally? If not, it's going to be kind of a handcuffed offense. So that's really the question for them. And I still have them projected for the playoff. I think it's a strong enough roster, and Mike Norvell does such a good job with the transfers. But the biggest question is at quarterback, and there's no way around it.
That's sort of the big game, so to say, for tomorrow, Brett. But are there some others that you have your eyes on?
Yeah, one really intrigues me right now. Montana State is an FCS team. They're heavy favorites over an FBS team, New Mexico. They're playing Bronco Mendenhall's new team. The former BYU and Virginia head coach is at New Mexico now. But when that line came out, I was shocked to see an FCS team 2 touchdown favorites over an FBS team. You just never see that. And I went back and looked, and when an FCS team is favored over an FBS team, it sounds crazy to see it on paper, but they're actually 65% against the spread. So
I wondered.
It's almost like they're not getting enough credit. So, 13.5 seems high, but history's on their side here.
SMU Nevada has also got my attention more because of SMU and what they look like and what they could potentially be right now. Is that one intriguing to you? Is it the matchup? And maybe the better question is your thoughts on SMU.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with Pick Six Previews, I cover only the Power 4 conferences. So now that SMU transitioned up to the ACC, I got to really dive in on them. So
which is still so crazy that we're talking about SMU and the ACC.
Yeah, well, Cal Stanford, you go Bay Area all the way to the East Coast. It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah, with SMU, I'm excited to see them now as a Power 5 member. I like their quarterback, Preston Stone. They're really experienced coming back from last year's AAC title team. And and one thing that stood out in my research was the way they stacked their defensive line and offensive line with Power 5 players. Because when you see a team transition up from the lower ranks to the Power 5, the biggest difference is strength and size and depth in the trenches. So the way they hit the portal hard there was big, and I want to see that come to fruition here. I think it's going to be a solid team this year.
As we go into next week, and I know we'll be talking to you more in depth about this on Friday, a week from today. Nebraska, as they have officially named, I know this was no surprise to you, nor was it to us, but officially naming Dylan Ryla as the starting quarterback and just the overall impact it has of a true freshman in what is I don't want to say an important year for Matt Rule from a job security standpoint, but just for this football program trying to, as I said earlier in the show, try to get the trust factor back with the fans in games. I think nobody does better than winning the offseason, Brett, than Nebraska. But when you can now morph that into what it's taking place on Saturdays, and you look at the trajectory of Nebraska heading into this season, what are the initial feels, just in your opinion, about Nebraska?
Yeah, well, I think when you hire a guy like Matt Rule, I know the goal was to hire one of the best developers in the country. You got that with him. He's done it at Temple here in Pennsylvania. He's done it at Baylor. So that was the idea, was the build. 2, 3, 4 years down the road, get this to be a really competent, strong team. And I think in year one, you really saw that on defense. I think it was a great coordinator hire, Tony White. Defense was top 10 for my metrics, and he bring 8 starters back from that unit. Most importantly, they were able to retain White himself from his alma mater, UCLA, who was hiring. Mm-hmm. So defensively, I really love what Nebraska has. Offensively, I think they're healthier at the skill positions. They got some tough injury run. Nobody talks about the injury run they had at running back and receiver. So you're healthy there. Offensive line is finally veteran. Now, can they be strong? We'll see with their veteran. And then quarterback. That was the biggest problem on the team last year. It was the most turnovers in the country, worst turnover margin in the country. You watched Nebraska play last year. They're just handing the ball over to opponents. So that can't happen again. And yeah, so with a 5-star quarterback, I watched the spring game, and I know it's just a spring game, but he was hitting every throw on the field. Deep ball, nice touch in the end zone, quick shots. He's got it all. So I'm really excited to see Nebraska. I think you got to get back to a bowl, give these fans a bowl season. It's the longest bowl drought in the country in the Power 5 level. It's hard to believe, but I think they get there. I think they hit the 7.5 win total. I'm calling for 8-4 this year. Yep. Really favorable schedule draw to start the season out. You're going to be favored in the first 7 games. So you got to get those W's early on. But I like it this year.
You answered the one question I had, Brett, about Nebraska's prediction. Is there a team out there that is a surprise team that maybe some of us are not talking about, that you kind of could puff your chest out if it all comes together, but you could see this team and say, hey, look out for them?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a bunch that I'm kind of disagreeing with the other magazines about. I think nationally, ACC, Miami's my big shock pick. I have them winning the ACC this year. Big 12-wise, UCF, I'm the only magazine to have them ranked in the top 25. I think you're going to have something special there, a surprise team. From the Big 10, I don't know that there's really many surprises. I mean, I have a little bit of chalk at the top. I've got Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan at the top 4. I do have Iowa 5th, and I know that this isn't a surprise to any Nebraska fans. I know they're closely watching Iowa as well. I do like them to also hit their win total, like I have Nebraska. Iowa opened up at 7.5. I thought that was crazy, and it's already gone up to 8.5. But I think Iowa's a solid 9-win team. Nebraska, we hit on going 8-4. I really like their defense, and the improvement in quarterback will be huge. But dark horse from the Big 10, maybe Wisconsin. It's a team no one's talking about, and they're flying under the radar, but you just know it's a competent, well-run program. Second-year bonus from Luke Fickell and their coordinator, Phil Longo. So look out for them. Maybe a surprise. That'll be a tough game this year for Nebraska.
It's Brett Ciancia with Pick 6 Previews. He's going to join us every Friday on our Football Friday Fiesta. We always look forward to that. And, if you're hearing him right now on the show, And you're going to hear him next Friday. That means college football has started. Week 0 begins tomorrow. Brett, always love talking with you. And again, great work on the spread as always. I know you don't need to hear that because you do a fantastic job, but cannot wait to be talking to you here throughout the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Thanks for the praise. It's always great talking with Husker fans and media, the most passionate in the country, in my opinion. So it's great. I can't look forward to the season enough.
Awesome stuff, man. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Brett Ciancia, Pick Six Previews,
It's
and
still
as
better now.
Jimmy mentioned too. Yeah, that's something. If you don't either have the hard copy version or the digital version,
That's good.
there's still time.
Mm-hmm.
There's still time. I mean, you still got a little more than 24 hours before the season kicks off.
Well, if you order it, you get the digital version. You
Yeah.
pay for that. So
I've done the
can read
digital
that.
version.
And I have both. So you can do that. And to be honest, you'll
Just
get
hit your email. It's
You'll
good.
get your physical before week 1.
It's true.
So you get you can read the digital for week 0 before the stake comes out. The big, almost said a bad word, the big freaking stake that is college football week 1. You'll have the magazine there. You wake up on Saturday, your coffee table, whatever you have. Oh, you can go to Nick's house where he'll be making breakfast next Saturday. I think I just put you on the spot.
No.
No.
We've got family in town.
Then they'll take
Friday,
care of breakfast. Okay,
so
they're going to take care of
if
breakfast.
if that duty and responsibility falls on me, look, I got big red overreaction. I gotta be locked in on Saturday.
All right, Reese has breakfast taken care of. Whatever he wants.
I gotta. Yeah. I'm hoping that will be a very pleasant one too.
Could be.
Zach on the Equitable Bank inbox, going back to our Colorado feeling of what type of game that's going to be as far as importance to the season. Said if Nebraska loses to Colorado, that doesn't mean the season is over, but there's no other game on Nebraska's schedule this season that is as important for them to win for multiple reasons. And I hear what he's saying. I said from a national standpoint, yeah. I think from a fan standpoint, if you were to lose that game, but say you were able to end the season in a positive manner, and especially getting some dubs against Wisconsin and Iowa, that would offset a little bit of that sting from week 2. But he countered with a couple of good points, and I'm curious what you guys think about this. It said from a national standpoint and a program trajectory standpoint and a recruiting standpoint, if Nebraska is going to take a step forward that they have the potential to, then they beat Colorado this season. If Rule turns into a Big Ten-style smash mouth game, then Nebraska will win. If Rule lets Satterfield fall into trying to beat Colorado at 7-on-7, then Colorado has a chance to win. Nebraska was the better team last season, and they are the better team this season. They were starting to pound Colorado in the run game last season until Irvin got injured, and then Sims got the yips and couldn't even handle the snap without fumbling and couldn't even time the snap without hitting the player in motion multiple times. Goes on with a lot of different examples. So I won't get into all of it. But he does bring this up, says Nebraska's best case scenario next season is to get a ton of buy-in from high-profile recruits by getting off to a great start next season. Starting off 6-0 or even 7-0 would be huge in that regard. If Nebraska starts out like that, then I guarantee they have a shot to get or flip Christian Jones, David Sanders, and Michael Terry in the 2025 recruiting class. Another reason that I put Colorado over teams like Iowa and Wisconsin is that Nebraska will get another crack at them next season, and the season after that and after that. But Nebraska may not ever get another regular season shot at Colorado, and likely won't get another shot at them with that, as he says, not my words, but he says that clown Dion is HC. Then he says also F Colorado, F Dion, and Warren Sapp. Zach
had to throw that in there.
Zach doesn't like Colorado, but
I think he likes mountains at least.
I think those are all fair points as far as the recruiting aspect, because if you are beating a team, and look, Colorado could go, I think they're going to go to a bowl game this year, but Colorado could be a team that doesn't look the part either by the end. Maybe it's very similar as the way that they ended last season. And you got to remember, when Nebraska plays Colorado, the 4-8 season from a year ago is completely forgotten about, because who's back in the spotlight? The Flash. And then, just appropriately, we have the Field Yates mock draft comes out where it's like, okay, Shedeur Sanders is in the top 10 picks. Fair. Travis Hunter is at number 11. Tommy Hill, by the way, 32. But you've got a lot of the conversation about the top end talent, which I think is fair. Deion Sanders is always going to be an attraction, regardless of what the season is looking like, until we finally get tired of that. But it is week 2, so he'll still be, and they will still be very relevant, no matter even what happens that previous Thursday against North Dakota State. So it is there is, I think, an appearance factor. Primetime game, NBC, Nebraska under the lights at home against Colorado.
Those two belong together playing on a football field. It just sounds right.
There'll be a lot made of the history. There'll be a lot made of even last year. There's going to be some bad blood drummed up. It's one of those games that
the fans
I think from a surface level, there are ramifications. I think there's an impact on either how that game goes, whether it's a win or a loss. Either way, it's going to have an impact. But I would say if Nebraska were to lose to Colorado, from just what Nebraska needs to accomplish this year on the field and getting to 7 or potentially 8, and maybe people think more, that game, in my opinion, doesn't completely eliminate you from, like I said earlier, the trust factor, getting the fans to trust. Because I know what that will be like the week after if Nebraska loses to Colorado. But the fact remains you got 10 other opportunities to regain that trust.
Nebraska will whip their ass by 20 plus. That's
my
early
prediction. You are very that's good.
That is not a knock against Colorado. I know that's the in thing to do here. That is just I at some point you have to make a stand, and I think this team, they'll do that. You have an adult in the room leading things. If everyone's healthy and all things are fair and they do what they have to do, they will roll them.
I'm really
the defense. You know what? I keep trying to manifest a Nash Hutmacher interception or fumble return for a touchdown. Maybe that's the game I can get it.
Well, don't forget, Nebraska got to Shedeur Sanders a lot. Shedeur Sanders got knocked down quite a bit last season. I'm convinced that this is a 1-score game. Now that could go as far as 8 points, but it's funny. We were talking about the Oregon game. It wouldn't shock me if it has a similar feel, as people were bringing up the emergence, and not even the emergence, because Tommy Armstrong was obviously an upperclassman and a senior that year, but the taking the team on his back in key moments of that game, I don't expect 15 to do that. But what I do expect is he's got enough people around him that can help him have some big moments and maybe some key moments.
Maybe a little bit of a coming out.
I think this is going to be an entertaining game.
That's for sure.
I think it will be, and I think from an entertaining standpoint, I think that you can look at it two different ways. You can look at it, the comparison of the venue and the environment is 2014 Miami.
Yeah.
That one where Nebraska distanced themselves. I wouldn't say they blew out Miami, but they distanced themselves, got out of reach from Miami there at the end.
It'll start close-ish.
Or the
halftime be like, all right.
Or the Oregon game, which was a 3-point game. Tommy Armstrong on a 2nd down and 6 with a huge run to put Nebraska up, and then they held on to win. I wouldn't be shocked. In fact, I kind of expect it a little bit more like that. But if it's a 20-point win, like you're saying, at least, holy hell, what this place will be like, even after a 2-0 start in a bludgeoning of Colorado, that would be
champagne.
That would go a long way in the trust tree.
I'm here for it because we've seen a lot of the other stuff, and Gary made this point on this show a year ago that when things go well around here, everything else seems to fall into place. People are happier. Business seems to be better in town and around the area. So I'm here to just we've done the other stuff. We just said last hour, 2 years ago, started right after the Northwestern game. And this was, here we go again. It never changes. Well, how about we see how the other half lives this year and see what happens when you start to make progress? I don't think they'll be obnoxious. I still come back to that. I know what you guys are saying. Oh, they're going to be bad. No, I don't think so, because it's one of those like, hey, Nebraska's good again. All right.
Oh, buddy, you haven't lived here long enough.
It'll
get.
Hey,
but as I said too, it's going to be
good for them.
Obnoxious has a negative connotation. It'll be, I think, obnoxiously great.
Hell yes, puff your chests out. Many of you have sat through so many years of bad football. If things start to go well, just enjoy the hell out of it.
I'm looking forward to a new generation's trash talk, because it's always been a lot of older generation trash talk because we really haven't had a lot of time. Now, people forget, though, we had a small dose of this where we got to puff out the chest at least for a handful of days, because remember the 24-hour stretch of Nebraska beats Iowa in the Trey Palmer game, and then Matt Rule subsequently officially named the head coach, which a lot of national people were praising that decision.
It was on game day?
Yeah, you had a 24-hour stretch where it's like, hey, this was fun. And then, people are quickly to remind you that you're still not going to a bowl game. But Yes.
They're like, well, right, the season's over. We're 4-8. Of course, we're not. Going
I would say this:
game.
if Nebraska wins by 1 or 20, people are going to be extremely elated. But if they do what you do, that creates, I think, even more of a national buzz. I think if Nebraska wins by 3, 4, 5, 6, if they beat Colorado, if that were to happen, I think internally we're talking this thing up. We're talking about the process. I think nationally it's like, oh, okay, interesting. But if they beat them by more than 20, then I think the entire national college football audience is like, oh,
when do they play next?
Okay, this is interesting.
What's this, Dylan? Is he related to the one that played the NFL?
Speaking of watching football, I know everyone's going to be watching the Aer Lingus Classic tomorrow, 11 a.m. Little Irish breakfast, if you will. It is Florida State taking on Georgia Tech. Week 0, we kick off college football. And the voice of the Seminoles, Jeff Culhane, our good friend, will be joining us live from Dublin when we return here on Mornings with Sharp and Handley. It's Jimmy, it's Nick, it's Peter, 1620 The Zone. All right, so football is here. College football gets underway tomorrow. NFL preseason wrapping up. And you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And you also heard us talking about some of those rates when it comes to watching the Sunday ticket. Well, we got something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. Whether you're a Bears fan like me and can't get them all, you're a Chiefs fan, a Vikings fan, a Packers fan, or Jimmy's Cowboys, it doesn't matter. You got them all right there, free for the first few weeks. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Go to FanDuel.com, use the promo code ZONE. That's FanDuel.com/zone to download America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in Iowa. Full price of NFL Sunday Ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after free trial. No refunds. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-BETS-OFF. I'm going to hear that a lot tomorrow at Aviva Stadium, the Aer Lingus Classic, as Florida State will take on Georgia Tech. Week 0 college football is here, and that is your marquee matchup, an ACC battle. And voice of the Florida State Seminoles and our good friend, an alum of the Husker Sports Network, Mr. Jeff Culhane, joining us live from Dublin. I'm happy to say, good afternoon, Jeff Culhane. How are you?
Indeed. Good afternoon. Good morning. Aaron Gobra. How are you guys doing? Nick and Jimmy, everything good?
Yes. Is your body adjusted to the time difference now? Are you well acclimated?
I feel pretty good. It might have been the Guinness and Jameson that made me feel a little off this morning when I woke up.
Yes, sir.
And not the jet lag, but no, it's been good. Yeah, it's about 1:40 Dublin time over here right now. And so, the whole operation of getting this team here is, as Nebraska fans know, is a huge deal behind the scenes and something they've been planning, since the game was announced. So the biggest thing is trying to get the players, to perform as if it's a game at Doak Campbell Stadium. So all good, feeling good. It was about a 7-hour flight through the night, Wednesday into Thursday. And we're ready to go, man. Let's play some football over here.
Jeff, one of my friends works in athletics also down there, and she said pretty much the entire department is in Dublin. So at least you feel like you are in Tallahassee East, far east.
Man, I'll tell you, Jimmy, last night at dinner and just walking through the streets of Dublin, it is, technically this is a Georgia Tech home game, but the home field advantage is going to be a Florida State. I mean, there's no question about it. I think we've got, over 20,000 fans here, maybe near 25, and it's a sellout crowd in Aviva Stadium. So the Go Noles chants as you walk by people, I mean, it feels like it's 5-1 Florida State to Georgia Tech fans. So it should be a stadium that's filled with garnet and gold for sure on Saturday afternoon into Saturday night.
You mentioned the travel, and I know that this was the whole part of the Nebraska experience in Northwestern. It's kind of funny you say that it's being taken over by Florida State, even their quote away game. Same thing with Nebraska. They had more of the fans of Northwestern. We remember that. That whole getting everyone focused on the task at hand, but knowing that you don't necessarily want to dismiss the experience. And I'm sure Norvell has also been very positive about, hey, wanting the guys to be able to enjoy this part, but also knowing how important it is to get off on the right foot. So how have you seen Mike Norvell balance everything with the game itself, but also you're in a different place. You may never be here in your life again, or if you are, it might be a very, very long time. So soak it in.
Yeah, he did it. He's a smart yet simple thing. We're going to stay a day later, and we're going to do all the touristy. The team's going to do the touristy stuff on Sunday after the game. It seems simple, but I think a lot of people try and figure out how to get it all in before the contest, right?
Yeah.
And, and the schedule works out as well. That's the other part about it is on the back end, Florida State plays Boston College the Labor Day Monday night game in Tallahassee next weekend. And so, you can leave Monday morning and return and feel like you have a normal game week with everything. And so it's been scheduled correctly. There's no game next Saturday you have to get back for right away. I've seen some of the guys just walking around outside or around the pub, not in the pubs, but around the streets and around, downtown Dublin. And, so he's allowed them to take it all in. But the focus is obviously the game, and it's a big one. It's a big game early in the season where you have a conference opponent and a team then Georgia Tech that feels like they're ripe to go grab an upset of sorts. So, simple but smart thing. The tourist and fun day will be Sunday for the guys after the football game Saturday evening.
Talking to the voice of the Seminoles, Jeff Culhane. The toe meets the leather. See what I did there, Jeff? That happens tomorrow.
Yeah, he did.
Is there a little bit of a wish, though, that maybe they had a bye week next week just to kind of slowly transition? Or, like you said, that Labor Day Monday, just get through that because the Seminoles are off the following week, so they would have a bye week.
Yeah, toe meets Irish leather, right? I wonder if the football feels different over here compared to America. But I don't know if it's a wish. I think by that point, Jimmy, they'll be fine. I mean, Boston College comes in. It's their first game of the year. New head coach and Bill O'Brien, and he's obviously a great football mind. We all remember him from his days at Penn State during their sanctions and transition when we first got in the Big Ten. Nebraska did. And so I don't think there's a wish or a worry overall. If anything, it keeps the guys kind of, locked in when they come back because they know they still have work to do. So we'll land Monday afternoon around 3:00 Eastern time. They have an off day Tuesday, maybe some workouts, some weights, some film, and then they're right back into game week on Wednesday with a Monday night game. So I think it's all good. The other item that's interesting with this is, the game of football has become international. How many games have we seen in Europe with the NFL, and we're going to see a Friday night game with the Eagles and the Packers in Brazil. One of the items, everybody in college football wants to play in the NFL, and so. One of the things about this game on the Florida State side that's been preached is, hey, yeah, it's different. It's a little unique, but if you want to play at the highest level, you better get ready to play these kinds of games and perform because you're going to play a game in Europe, most likely if you get into the NFL. And so that part of the motivation, I think, is a fun way to look at it that I haven't heard many people talk about, which is cool.
Jeff, the Florida State team, we know how the season ended, and obviously that was very frustrating to not see them in the college football playoff. Jordan Travis now gone. As much as I'm assuming that you were very excited to see Florida State get the services of DJU, was there part of you saying, God, now I got to pronounce that last name on every broadcast, and so I got to nail this because I feel everyone just kind of just referred to him as DJU, but you're a pro. You'll go with the full last name there.
Yeah, DJ Uiagalelei.
Oh, just rolls off. Yes.
Got to get loose. You got to do some stretches and turn on a little anchor man, if you're on Burgundy going.
The arsonist has oddly shaped feet. Yep.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. Audrey, this is Bush League. But I mean, I tell you, it's going to be fun to watch DJ play because I think everybody has sort of written him off. Which I think is a dangerous thing to do with a guy that has his skill set. In the ACC, everybody's talking about Cam Ward at Miami, and I get it. He's a good player, but let's not, forget that DJ is pretty talented too, and he's gone through adversity. He's had certainly his struggles. I would argue that at Clemson, it wasn't all of his fault. I mean, I think they had some things going on there from a coaching perspective on the offensive side that they didn't really know what they wanted to do, quite honestly. And I think Mike Norvell is the perfect match for him at this point in his career. DJ's willing to listen. He's willing to learn. He's mature. He's humble. He's confident. And he's got an NFL skill set. He just needs the right guy to kind of take him and mold him. And there's not many better offensively than Mike Norvell in college football. And the fact, guys, that now you have the communication system and the helmets like they do in the NFL. I think having a coach in your ear up to a certain point on the play clock, letting you know what the play is and what to look out for, I think that's going to be a huge asset for these two. And I can't wait to see what kind of music they make here starting on Saturday evening.
Enjoyed some of the videos that you posted on your social media content, if you will. Previewing the season for the team. Are there some guys, Jeff, that you think could take a big step for the Seminoles this year that maybe were fringe last year but are poised to really make that leap here?
Well, there's always some newcomers in the portal, obviously, that you go out and you learn about. I think Malik Benson is a name that a lot of Noles fans and college football fans will get to know a little bit more. He was the top JUCO prospect, junior college recruit a couple of years ago out of Hutch, and Alabama went and got him, and he played a little bit last year, not a ton, and now he's here at Florida State. And I think he's the number one option in the receiving game for this group that needs some guys to step up. With Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson moving on to the NFL, the wide receiver room's looking for that guy. And I think Malik Benson is certainly a name that you can watch out for in so many ways offensively. Look, on the defensive side, Florida State's defensive line needs to get more love. And I get that you lose Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and Fabian Lovett and those guys, but the first 4 guys that Florida State trots out there, to me, are as good as any in college football, with Patrick Payton and Marvin Jones Jr. on the edges and Darrell Jackson and Josh Farmer along the interior. I mean, all those guys can play anywhere in the country. And so I think Florida State's defensive front has a chance, as good as it was at the end of last year. I think it has a chance, guys, to be as good and maybe even better with the talent they have and the depth. They can roll 9-10 guys deep along that line.
Well, and Jeff, obviously that's important because I think maybe the forgotten guy out of this matchup is going to be what Georgia Tech has of the signal caller and Haynes King, who, as people who have had a chance to see him play, they know that that there's a guy that's going to want to be able to chuck a little bit, has a little bit of athleticism, but this is going to be that opportunity that if Florida State is able to get after Haynes King, then you might see that number hit when it comes to the old Vegas insiders of where they have Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, he's good. He's really good. He and Jaden Daniels are, the only 2 guys a year ago with the types of stats from the quarterback position. With 2,800 passing yards, 25 passing touchdowns, 700 rushing yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns. And, you also put those numbers next to one of the all-time greats in the ACC as well, in Lamar Jackson when he was at Louisville, those types of numbers in a season. So he's capable, obviously. He has, a year ago, he gave the football up a lot.
Yep.
He threw 16 picks, most in Power 5 college football. So that's an area you want to try and exploit. So you feel like he's a little bit of a gunslinger. You feel like he's a little bit of, Picasso on the move and get some things going. Georgia Tech's offense is very good. I mean, King returns. You have Jamal Haynes back, 1,000-yard rusher. And then 3 receivers in Eric Singleton, Malik Rutherford, and Christian Leary, who all had great moments a year ago. So, and an offensive line that has 4 starters back off of it. So you talk about strength on strength in a lot of ways. I think you see that in this game with, Florida State's defense against this Georgia Tech group that offensively feels like they return a lot of firepower and they want to keep things rolling.
Jeff, before we let you go, as far as I always have to ask because I was not in Dublin, but I've heard everybody say this that went and that partook in any type of pub or even maybe the Guinness tour, that there is no comparison to the taste of Guinness out there compared to here in the States. And I have a feeling if I think I know you as well as I do, I would say you'd be a very good person to ask on this.
So I'm not a big Guinness guy. Okay, let's just start there. Like I don't drink Guinness on the regular. Okay,
you're a fine Scotch guy. I know.
Yeah, well, a little bourbon here and there.
There you go. Okay,
good for the pipes.
Yeah, they warm them up pregame show. No, I did the Guinness tour yesterday. It was fantastic. I mean, it's everybody wants to drink the beer, right? They want to get to the bar and taste it. But there's some really cool stuff along the tour that is set up by Guinness, and it's a pretty fun, almost like a museum-like setting overall. But yeah, the taste of it is just, man, it's really, really good. Yeah, I mean, hard to compare when you don't know, you haven't had a ton of it in the States. But if you like Guinness in the States, you're going to love it over here. That's for sure. So, and the Jameson is pretty darn good as well in Dublin. So, it's an old city. Historical, obviously. There aren't any skyscrapers or anything like that. So it doesn't, you don't feel like you're overwhelmed, with the bigger area. But it's got a little, New Orleans vibe to it, to a certain extent, without the Creole, obviously. The narrow streets and the old architecture and structures and history, and yeah, you can stumble into a building and find yourself to really about a pub anywhere you want to go. So the people are great. They're very welcoming, as all Nebraska fans know. And it's definitely a game that I think is going to be here for a long time. I think this is going to be a game that really builds some steam, and K-State and Iowa State are playing here next season. So they've got something cooking with this setup over here. It's a lot of fun.
Jeff, have a great call. Football's here. I know you're excited as much as we are, but enjoy your time out there. Always, from what I've understood, just an amazing experience. And I know when it's kickoff, you will be ready to go, and excited to see what Florida State can do, my man.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate you having me. Have a great weekend.
That is Jeff Colhane, voice of the Florida State Seminoles. And isn't it interesting that the road team, just like when Nebraska was there, is going to get more of the fan support. A sellout at Aviva Stadium, too. There we go. I would say 80% probably Florida State fans.
Florida State's Dublin's team.
That's right. I wonder if they will have – so my in-laws went to Dublin. This would have been the following spring after Nebraska was playing there in the Aer Lingus Classic. So it would have been spring of 23.
Oh, so you were here now.
That in the airport they still had welcome Nebraska fans banners still hanging up there. I wonder how long the Florida State welcome Noel fans will hang around, because usually you know who you're catering to when you start seeing all the flights coming in from certain states, or you start hearing about the amount of fans that are going to be representing a certain school. That you maybe roll out the red carpet a little bit more to welcome than other ones. Nothing against Northwestern.
Maybe Nebraska fans were still going on vacation there the next year because of the history, and didn't get to see everything the first time.
That'd be pretty sweet if you could go to Dublin twice. In
that direct flight from Epley to Dublin.
Yeah. Hey, we're getting big, international. Coming up, we're going to be talking some USC football. Friend or foe segment is just around the corner. We get into hour number 3. We'll be talking not only to Eric McKinney of wearesc.com, but also Mike Schaefer will be joining us. We'll get his thoughts as Dylan has been named quarterback. Marquise Buford has been named a starting corner, and all things Nebraska and recruiting as well. As we continue here in Mornings with Sharp and Handley, it's Jimmy, it's Nick, it's Peter, 1620 The Zone.
Yeah. I don't know why I said that. Fall's just around the corner, and 1620 The Zone is giving you the chance to win season passes to Nebraska's favorite fall attraction. No, it's not next week's roundtable, though that might be the second best one. It's Vallo's Pumpkin Patch. You could win 2 2024 season passes to Vallo's and enjoy all the fall family fun that Vallo's has to offer. Enter to win right now at 1620thezone.com.
Going to be getting into some more college football conversation as we'll take a look at USC and also talking some more Nebraska with Mike Schaefer in hour number 3. Real quickly, and Zach brings us up in the Uncle Bank inbox, and I did see the first episode of this. So we know that Nebraska is doing the Chasing 3. Oregon, very similar to the path of the Matt Rule and the Nebraska social media and access, the inside look to their fall camp and their summer. Oregon has theirs called that Team Out West, and it's pretty good. I saw the first episode. I know they've had a couple since, but it is, again, very, very similar to what you see Nebraska doing too, giving you a little inside look. Their first episode is more about Oregon at the Big Ten Media Days, as we've seen with Nebraska, the Chasing 3, and we
get the duck in the water.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's a big deal on the duck in the water. Just like Matt Rule, Dan Lanning was on the Pat McAfee show when they were in Indianapolis as well. So. The Oregon presence is, whether you like it or not, it's going to be a loud one. Yet when you come in with the swagger and the dudes that Oregon has,
and the duck,
it is going to be it's going to be a program that I think I don't worry about when it comes to making that transition from one conference to another. This is but if Zach mentioned. As he was watching this, it was pretty good. Yeah, they do a nice job of promoting their brand, especially in the Big Ten, and it's a little bit more in your face than what Nebraska is, but it is Oregon too.
Well, they don't say Oregon nice.
Yeah, they've got all the uniforms to prove it as well. So we'll see. Speaking of Oregon, one of the teams with Oregon joining the Big Ten is USC. They are on Nebraska's schedule, and they will be a road game that I know a lot of people are starting to kind of circle, making their way out to LA for this one. We will get the latest on SC, including potentially some Pete Carroll influence on the 2024 season, as Eric McKinney of WeAreSC.com joins us right after this on 1620 The Zone. Halftime is brought to you by Omaha Whiskey Fest 2024, the largest celebration of whiskey in the region, taking place September 28th, downtown Omaha at the Hilton. And there could be, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag because it's not official yet, but there could be a very special Big Red overreaction that could be connected to the Omaha Whiskey Fest.
Is this thing getting some legs now? I know somebody threw it out there. Good. I'm happy to hear that.
I believe it is.
Good idea.
Because that is an 11 a.m. game against Purdue, so it's an early game. Then you have the opportunity to go
to Whiskey Fest
in the afternoon. The Whiskey Fest. It's almost worked out too well.
It's 28th, right? Yeah,
September 28th.
Oh, we won't be in town that day.
Purdue versus Nebraska. Are you going to West Lafayette?
No, we'll be at Arrowhead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, most hated rival TCU is in town.
The Horned Frogs.
Yeah.
I wonder how well they'll be this year. Huh? There's another team. Big 12 is
there's 36 teams in the league.
Going to be very, very interesting, to say the least. Very, very interesting.
But the point is, if you're here, go to Whiskey Fest. Big Red overreaction, possibly there.
Maybe there. Yeah, we can't officially say that, but we've been talking about it. Maybe by talking about it right now, this will
manifesting it.
You guys weren't supposed to say anything. Now I guess we have to somehow do it.
Oh, gee. Just for that, you can host with
If Nebraska loses to Purdue on 11 a.m. game in West Lafayette, and I mentioned this yesterday, I think that is a turning point game because it will be the first road game for one Dylan Raiola and this Nebraska football team that...
Are you hosting that day?
I'm not. I wish I was.
I thought that's what you were getting at, so I was like,
no,
okay.
I just think that if Nebraska were to lose that game, that Whiskey Fest might have an influx of participants.
Either celebrate or mourn. Either way, just go.
Be sure you're listening every Wednesday, by the way, here on 1620 The Zone and Mornings with Sharp and Handley, because, just do it anyway. But also, we are always giving you passes until we get to the week of the event.
4 passes to give away.
Very, very happy about that thing. So even though this will be the best part, if I'm not on Big Red overreaction,
you can go
going to it, and I think it's John and Gary.
Oh, that's going to be must listen.
Maybe just sit on the other side of the table and just have a flight of whiskey there while I'm just listening. I'm a live listener.
John Bishop and Gary.
No, Schreiner.
Oh,
I think it's Schreiner.
Well, John Schreiner.
Maybe it's Bishop. It could be Bishop.
He appreciates some good whiskey.
Yeah, it could be Bishop. I'm not sure.
Either way,
it's a John, and I know Gary.
It's a Whiskey Fest with Gary there.
What could go wrong?
And he's not going to be on the StreamYard. He's going to be a man of the people with you that day.
By the way,
Gary, I might have to. Oh, wait, we can't.
Gary will be back on Monday. I know some people are like, hey, where's Gary? And they're like, Gary didn't seem like a vacation guy. Yeah, he's not.
He would tell you he's not.
Yeah, but that is what he is doing. So he'll be back with us on Monday when we kick off the season. So conversation, and we're efforting Eric McKinney. Well, hopefully we will talk to him. If not, maybe we'll talk to him next week as our friend or foe. It is early. And I was very impressed that he committed to that. It might be my fault because I don't know if I reminded him last night, so he could still be sleeping. Probably get a text in about an hour like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, hey, we've all been there. I'm going to be talking to Mike Schaefer here in about 15 minutes. So we
got Vikings questions for him.
Do we?
Well, just feel bad for him. Like we were talking about, it's his team.
I kind of do. Yeah.
Well, I don't have any beef.
Well,
with
I feel bad. I mean, okay,
they literally feel bad for them.
They literally had a player get killed like that. And then you have more bad luck with injuries. Everybody was excited about JJ McCarthy. Yeah, you thought, hey, the biggest injury concern we got rid of because Kirk Cousins was coming off of an Achilles. Well, now you got JJ McCarthy with a torn meniscus. So yeah, it hasn't been great for the Vikings. But if you want to feel bad that.
I do feel bad. His baseball team's blowing the division.
Feel bad that his baseball, because then I'll join in on that one. So you and I didn't have a chance to really talk much about this yesterday, and that is the significance of naming Dylan Raiola the starting quarterback as opposed to just assuming he was the guy. And again,
we really went out on a limb on that one.
I don't know if we're making too big of a deal out of this, since it's been named, since he was, named and they put out the tweet of it. But I thought Sip said something yesterday, and if you remember this, where if you have any major takeaway from Dylan getting the official nod at QB1, it was earned. It wasn't something that was an agreement when he decided to flip from Georgia to Nebraska that, hey, if we're going to do this, we need some type of assurance that.
Yeah, I can't see Dom doing that.
Well, I wouldn't.
I don't know Dom personally,
either.
but I have a feeling he'd be like, no, you go on.
And I don't even think that in that scenario it'd even be by the family or the kid himself.
Yeah.
But I think there could be some coaches in certain situations that if that played out, that they would almost feel obligated of, man, this guy, this 5-star guy, he chose us. We've got to make him be the guy right out of the gate because we know that's what he wants to do.
That's what the fans want.
And I think there's always a little bit of that narrative of 5-star guys that have been brought up the way that Dylan has, that there can be that narrative of, well, they really haven't. Everything has been so easy because they're so talented and gifted that things have come so easy that they don't really know what it's like to show up from day one and grind. And this is where we talk about the difference of Dylan Raiola to a lot of true freshmen that are in a major, major position of importance, like quarterback, is from day one. I mean, even ending vacations early to be in Lincoln for a big recruiting weekend so he could help out, being there on pro day so he could throw the football around to certain guys. There's been a lot of things that Dylan...
He's doing his part.
Yeah. That by the time fall camp opened up, I don't think anybody on that team looked at him as a true freshman. I think he was already ingrained into this culture, into this roster as a guy. Of course, he was there in the spring. He organized those summer throwing sessions. Hell, he flew his receivers out and put up the money for the Airbnb while he was there. And
damn,
I mean, the things that he did.
I couldn't even buy you lunch.
Well, you and I don't have the NIL situation that
I
he
could
has.
go get some free food coupons from Mel, but that's about it.
The fact that he's using his NIL payments and using a little bit of that extra cash to better his relationship with the team and to try to better the team.
It's a regular Max Scherzer.
There's nothing about that announcement that it was a surprise, but I do think it's a good moment to remind yourself that this was never given to him. And even if it was always good, well, even he could have a crappy fall and he's still going to be named quarterback number 1. We'd never know that because of the way he went about it. And I hope that is just a sign of things to come on how he handles this thing now that he is in the driver's seat and he is going to be moving this thing. This is now his offense, that it will only make him that much more hungry to do the same things that he did throughout the offseason. Because I think Sip was right. You come away with now knowing when it was announced that there was no part about that was ever catered to him or given to him, that this was 100% earned.
Yeah. He's done the work. He seems like he has a great support system behind him that will put him in a position to have success if he does the things that he needs to do, which he's doing. And they're doing it on the football field with the coaching and the developing and all that stuff. I mean, it sounds almost, again, drinking the Kool-Aid, continuing the theme of the week, but you have to be pleased with, okay, this is the best possible scenario we could have hoped for going into it. And now finally, this is the whole point of the countdown. Once you get 8 days down the road, all right, let's see. As Gary says, turn the scoreboard on. Let's see what it's about. And then go from there.
I find myself...
Never once did I think he didn't earn it.
No.
It's weird because, normally you do think about things like that. But when you say that, I was thinking as you were saying that, that's true. I guess we didn't really think about that because it just seemed like a foregone conclusion. No, he's doing his part. He earned the opportunity, and now he's earned this opportunity, and he's doing the things necessary to do that.
I think that the overall, the amount of upperclassmen, we talked about this yesterday, of the guys that they have on the Senior Bowl watch list, guys in
all 474,
and not everybody. I mean, even Bryce Benhart wasn't on that list, but you've got guys that have been around, guys that decided to come back. Guys that I think if you're going to join their group, you're going to join that culture, you need to earn your way in. I think these guys take that very, very serious.
It's a player-led program.
And I think also the thing that we've discussed many times about that group is they're tired of losing. They just flat out want to win. So anything that could come in between that, they are going to put themselves in a position of let you know. They are not going to make it that easy on somebody. And I think from day one, they've seen the talent. I think from day one, the upperclassmen have realized this dude is going to help us win. Mm-hmm. And I think that, followed by the acts of Dylan Raiola in trying to integrate himself within this roster, I think that has gone extremely noticed. That what can you really say? Like, man, we want to dog on him as a true freshman. I'm sure there's ways they do that.
They can still have some fun.
But I think at the end of the day, that entire locker room realizes we're better at that position, even with a true freshman who has not taken one snap, which sounds crazy because, again,
dude,
this goes back to a lot of the reluctance that Nebraska fans are going to have to fully buy in on the season. And this goes back to something I said last week, where let's get nuts with this. If we're going to say Dylan Raiola is going to be an elevated member of that position, or is going to elevate that position and is going to help improve this offense, why do we have to put a cap on that his true freshman year? I think you definitely put a cap on that your true freshman year if you have a lot of major question marks, a lot of major holes on this offense. Mm-hmm. There's question marks, sure, but there's also a lot better. I've said this yesterday too. You're in a better situation than you would have been, say, even a year ago. If his number one targets, without, we remember, Xavier Betts leaving the team, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda gets injured, then later Marcus Washington gets injured. So you're down to either true freshman wide receivers or walk-ons that you're hoping can help you out and just sort of right the ship, so to speak. You've improved that room. Again, health is always a concern, but at least the bodies that you have right now, you've improved that room. Running back, again, health is a concern, but as of now, those guys are healthy. You're good there. Offensive line, I know this is the conversation that probably draws the ire of the most people, because I think some want to believe that experience is finally going to pay off to where collectively from left to right, they're going to be fine. But there's other people, and this is a fair take of, I still need to see it all come together with this offensive line. But the fact remains, you have many more resources this year than, say, Dylan is playing in 2023. So with all of that said, I think there's a lot of reason to just let yourself sort of run with this, with Dylan Raiola, what he can do, what he can mean to this offense, what he can mean to this team's fortunes. Yeah, I know people don't want to put it on the shoulders of a 19-year-old kid who's never played one college football snap. But you know what? Some people, when they just come into the position, that expectation level is high. They can handle it, and they feed off of that.
He seems right now as the type that is going to feed off it and do just fine, because he has been prepared for that. Now, he has to go out and do it, but the answer is there's one of two schools of thoughts here. One is I don't want to go get sucked in again, because how many times have we heard that? I heard that with Scott Frost. Oh, it's got to work now. If it doesn't work now, then when? That's just one example. But then the other side of it is we're 8 days away. It's okay to just go in and have some fun. If you allow yourself to dream just a little bit, just have fun with it. Because then once the games start, if you want to regress back to the mean of, I don't know, let the game start. And then that's okay. Because I understand that. We, as fans, we all go through that in general. I don't know. I mean, I know we're 12-0, but we really got lucky all 12 games. We really could have been 0-12 just as easy. That's why right now, this is a time for optimism. Because why not? Try it differently.
The game itself against UTEP, I don't expect to see it, and I don't need to see it.
From a West Texas town called
flashy plays and oh my gosh, just in awe of everything.
I think they'll keep it vanilla.
Yeah, and
you don't want to show Colorado anything.
And that's the word I would use, because we've talked to Rob Childress on this show many times of how he handles his pitching staff in Nebraska, and they say master the vanilla, meaning do the basic things like hitting your spots, throwing strikes, getting ahead of hitters,
get first down.
I think of quarterbacks.
Don't turn it over.
The high percentage passes. Mm-hmm. You're getting those guys. You're hitting certain guys in stride. If you got speed on the perimeter,
get those tight ends going, because they're going to be awful damn good.
Just functioning at quarterback in a very, very competent way is going to go a long way, especially in that game. Now, there is going to be a moment in the season where you've got to open things up a little bit, or he's going to have to make some plays. He's going to have to improvise. There's going to be a lot of those types of scenarios. And I'm not saying that's not going to exist next Saturday, but I just want to walk away from watching that game, whatever the score is, saying that was competent quarterback play.
How about you just go deep on the first play and just get it over with?
I would be shocked.
Why not?
Not on the first play.
No, I mean it on the first play. Play action, deep post route to a receiver of your choosing. That point doesn't matter. To somebody in the same jersey as you, and then you get kind of like when they ran the option first play. When they honored when they honored Frank at the spring game and they ran a play for him.
Mm.
That's what you do. And then, all right, we got it out of our system.
You know what? No, don't do that.
We're doing the thing.
I don't want them to show that for Colorado.
Oh, so then the next question is: would you rather first play the Colorado game go deep?
Yeah,
the stadium would explode.
Yes,
if it went well.
Hopefully not literally. That'd be messy.
Maybe not. Maybe not go on the side of Travis Hunter, but
no. I mean, however you want to do it. That's not my point. My point is, you devise something. All right, first play, we're going deep, get out of our system, and then we're going to get into our offense. Unless we score, and then we're going to get into our offense anyway. We get it back.
I think the entire part of Dylan Raiola right now is it's okay to still have a little bit of that wait and see. I think that's just how we are in a sports society when it comes to somebody who has not taken a significant snap at that level that he's going to be debuting in. But I also think there are certain people, and we'll find out if Dylan is one of those guys, that it's okay to kind of let your imagination run wild with what this guy could eventually do and what he could even do his true freshman year and the type of heights that he could take this position at. Because I think at some point, you hope that the position will yield those types of results, even when Dylan Raiola is no longer at Nebraska, that you've been able to recruit that position. You've been able to build some
another dude
sustainability.
That's a dude.
And they got another guy named TJ Latif who will be coming in as well that people like. So there's just, this is that, I think that balancing act of, I don't want to get my hopes up, but man, there's something there that excites me. I say, get your hopes up. Yeah. I feel confident this guy's just different. I really do.
Damn it, Nick. You know what?
I might be proven to be wrong.
This is just fun. That's what it is.
It is.
We waited all damn summer for this. This is fun.
There's just things
that I'm okay with going all in for this week because it's fun.
Well, and this is the one thing that the UTEP game is going to prove one way or the other. And I thought Matt Rule said this I think this was a very good point on his part of when it's live, how effortless it is when he throws the football, his pocket presence, his ability to climb, his ability to know when to escape and continue to play, all of those things. It's very less stressful when you know a guy can't hit you. So obviously next Saturday will be a big test of, do you still have that poise, that moxie, that ability to read, move up in the pocket, hit go through your progressions, have that internal clock, the timing, all those things, knowing that you are a target. I mean, I think you're going to see that in the first half. I think you're going to know. And even if he doesn't respond extremely well in the first half, this is the adjustments that are going to be continuously happening throughout the season. But I think that's more than anything, having contact on him. How does he respond to that? Is he moving a little bit quicker? Is the ball coming out a little bit quicker, but a little less accurate as well? How does that all look now in game speed when people can hit you?
Do you remember when we were kids, you might, Jim Kelly saying, the great Jim Kelly, first of all, saying that when a game started, I was playing with the Buffalo Bills, he used to love get hit hard early because it used to wake him up and get him into the game. Now, he admitted he was not wired the same as others. He's a little different in that, and he's a tough dude. But maybe in those cases, that's what it is. All right, he got a hit. Now you're playing the game.
Yeah.
And the jitters and everything. And that's kind of why I tongue-in-cheek say go deep on the first play, because those nerves are going to be there. Yeah. Might as well.
Well, he's going to have some guys at his feet at times this game, too, because the defensive line for UTEP is they're okay.
Yeah. But then you settle into it. Use your backs, tight ends, set up the receiver. But they'll keep it vanilla. They'll save the fun stuff for Colorado because that's normal.
Yeah. Fun stuff coming up next with Mike Schaefer of Husker 24/7 Sports, as we will talk some not only current roster, but future roster, as we are 8 days away from Nebraska and UTEP and the week 1 beginning of college football, even though week 0 gets going in a little more than 24 hours here on Mornings with Sharp and Handley, 1620 The Zone. 8 days away, Nebraska taking on UTEP, starting to, without an actual official release of a depth chart, starting to get some answers on all of that. And also, as we get into the season, there'll be some important visits. Is Nebraska looking to strengthen that roster beyond 2024? Got to talk all about that. Is Mike Schaefer of Husker 24/7 Sports. Schaefer, big weekend for our guards, my man.
Yeah, they need to score runs. I don't know. You used to pitch. I used to pitch.
Yep.
It was always easier when your offense managed to score a run in the first, 9 innings of the game.
Loosens you.
So I don't know. Maybe that should be their challenge this weekend. Try to score before the game ends.
I've taken a turn to negative town that I told the guys. Now I didn't say that they would miss out on the playoffs entirely, but I said if they relinquish the lead in the Central, they will not get it back.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I mean, the good thing is there's still a lot of games left. They have the tiebreaker over the Twins. They have to beat the Royals. I mean, that's kind of the team they have to take care of business against. But it's the vibes aren't great right now. It again turns out they're more of who I thought they were going to be than the team that was just running through the league in April and May.
Yep.
I don't like it when I'm right, Nick.
I know. I remember people always used to call. I know Colin Coward called Iowa the fake ID club type team. It's the feeling I have that Cleveland, when people are saying the best record in the American League and trying to go after that, I heard Aaron Judge say that yesterday. I'm like, but are they really? When you size up the Yankee roster and the Cleveland roster, it's like, who would you rather have?
Well, honestly, like part of the frustration of the last few days is that outside of Judge and Soto, they don't really have that much.
Yeah, that is true.
But it's also Judge and Soto.
Right.
Soto hit home runs 2 of the days, and Judge hit home runs 3 of the days, and their best players played like best players.
Yeah.
So Cleveland played like Cleveland.
That's very true.
And then there's the Vikings trying to find any positives, and things got to be tough. Where are you at right now? Is there any hope whatsoever for the Vikes?
I mean, they play in the NFC North, so yes. I don't think like anyone's running away in that division. I can't tell you that I'm like particularly excited about Sam Darnold, but they have a really good offense. Like if you just ignore the fact that the most important position they have a giant question mark. Everything else on offense is really good. So if he can be okay, if you get a Baker Mayfield or Geno Smith type season out of him, the Vikings can win some games. But I think they're probably more likely a 500 or slightly worse than 500 team this year. They're going to annoy teams, though. They're not going to just be an easy win for anybody.
That's kind of where I think the Bears are going to be too. So I think that's the handshake meme.
NFC North is that.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if anybody wins more than 11 games.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
You boys have redeemed yourself there. Okay.
Hey, speaking of quarterbacks and question marks, this time last year going into the season, we thought Nebraska had the answer with Jeff Sims. There were some red flags, but some of us chose to ignore them. I was kind of in that boat of like, he'll figure it out. He'll be fine. We knew that was a big question mark of what would happen as the season ended. Then the news of Dylan Raiola making his way to Nebraska seemed to answer that question. It was officially answered this week. So, Shafe, the significance of the official announcement of Dylan Raiola being QB number 1 would be what to you?
I mean, it's pretty significant, even though it felt like this was anticlimactic, like we've known about it for a long time. Even if the staff over there was telling us there was a competition, no one really believed that Heinrich Harburg or Daniel Phelan was going to be named the quarterback over a healthy Dylan Raiola. And I think a lot of it is just how rare it is. I mean, Nebraska had one true freshman starter for week 1. That was Adrian Martinez. And even that was, you had the Tristan Gebbia thing going on there. So it doesn't have the same feel. And then obviously we know Tommy Frazier came in, I want to say the Iowa State game, which game 5 or game 6 in 1992.
Yep.
And so it's not that they haven't had true freshman quarterbacks before, but it's exceedingly rare. And then if you look at last year as a compass, it's rare across college football. Like for Dylan Raiola to be able to do this, one, for as many highly touted quarterbacks we've had recently, Quinn Ewers didn't do this. You didn't have it from Arch Manning. Like these guys in other programs haven't been put in a situation where they've been asked to be the guy right away. And so it's a rarefied situation for Dylan Raiola to be in. And that's something we're celebrating. I mean, to get to this point, to be where we are, to have a season in front of us that seems like there's a lot of hope and promise, And for effectively to be asking an 18, 19-year-old kid to lead a Nebraska team that has a lot of aspirations, it's a kind of an exciting time. And then you let your mind run with it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first of what should be several years of Dylan Raiola at the helm. So there's a lot to be excited about, and they put, I think, a pretty good offense around him too to make it easier on a guy who is going to be going through some growing pains. And I think that's important to remember. It's not all just going to be arrow up with Nebraska's offense, but I think because of the veterans they have around them, their growing pains are going to be relatively minimal.
If you were to look at this team, and this is something I've kind of pondered, I want to give you some examples from last season of guys that had a pretty decent year 2 jump. Deshaun Singleton, I thought, was a guy that was just essentially, we just didn't know what his role would be like, and all of a sudden, boom, he was just a huge jump from a year ago before he gets injured. If there's somebody, whether it's on the defense, maybe it's on the offense, that you look at that has been used either sparingly or the results have been minimal, that you think either on the defensive side or with a change at quarterback on the offensive side that can have that type of year, is there anybody that you look on this roster and like, boy, this is the guy that I think makes that big 2024 jump?
Yeah, I've been writing about some of these guys in terms of breakouts over at Husker 24/7, and one that, and even before the unfortunate news of Javen Wright, one that I was kind of excited about because I think he's just a player. Like, I think he's a guy that when the lights are on, is just going to make plays in critical situations. And that's Mekhi Bayer there in the middle of Nebraska's defense. I really liked the way that he responded last year when they went to him and in the Colorado game, they're like, hey, we need you to help lock down Dylan Edwards. And Dylan Edwards torched TCU. I mean, just go back and look at what Dylan Edwards did against TCU. And then if you go watch some clips of that Nebraska game, Mekhi Bayer's right there with him and a tackle for a loss on a throw out of the backfield. I mean, he didn't allow him to get a whole lot of space. I think he's a pretty sure-handed tackler, which is something you always want to hear about a linebacker. And I think he runs and moves pretty well in space. And so I think he's one of those guys that maybe gets fit because you have John Bullock. We think Javen Wright's going to be back at some point. You have an interesting defense, and you have all these other names. Don't be surprised if Mekhi Bayer is someone that Tony White or Matt Rule is really excited about with how they play. He's just one of those guys that seems like he shows up. I mean, he was a really good player for Irvington in high school, and I think he's going to be a pretty good player for Nebraska too, and a future Black Shirt.
You may have.
Are we on speaker?
Yeah, we were in a car.
Oh yeah, okay.
All right. Good morning to Hudson. All right. Hey, so you guys have talked about this on Husker 24/7 already. I mean, we talk about Dylan, obviously, but there are other freshmen that could make impacts in year 1, and that's not something to dismiss or take for granted.
No, I mean, there's several guys that I think people could be pretty excited about. Vincent Shavers right there with Mekhi Bayer is one of those linebackers that's going to get opportunities. He's someone who, since he showed up in January, the staff can't stop talking about. They just raved about his ability. And then you've got Ja'Cory Barney, who I've been infatuated with since Nebraska picked up that commitment. I mean, this is a guy who played every position under the sun at his high school, except on the offensive and defensive line. He's a guy that if you had a wildcat formation, I'd stick him there at quarterback because he's that good as an athlete. He can throw a little bit. He played quarterback in high school. He's someone that could be a game breaker as a return man. He's someone that.
Oh, Shafe, you there? Oh, there you go.
Oh, sorry.
Lost you for a second.
Call dropping? Weird. Anyways, I was gushing about Ja'Cory Barney. He's another one of those freshmen I'm pretty excited about. And then from there, you've got some guys that I think are going to help out. I think Caleb Benning's going to burn his red shirt. I think he's going to play. There's a chance he's on the 2 deep on Monday. We'll see what happens with Carter Nelson. I don't know if he'll go over the 4 games, but they really like him, and his transition from 8-man to 11-man has gone very well. He's going to play at wide receiver, so there's not as much that he has to do as if he was a tight end. So I think there's certainly some interesting pieces beyond Dylan Raiola that are going to be playing a lot as freshmen.
Speaking of freshmen and potentially incoming freshmen, I know the big news around recruiting is that Nebraska getting good news with Michael Terry when it comes to that. He will be visiting during the Colorado game, and Shafe, we all know that game from an environment standpoint could stand out as second to none in recent time, as electric as that could be. Where do you think this thing is trending still with Michael Terry?
I mean, I think Nebraska's still chasing Oregon and Texas. I think these are kind of the teams that you have in front of you, and Nebraska caught up a little bit at the end of July. But if they can have a monster weekend with him in town against Colorado, if they can show that they have the ability to take care of business, and Dylan Raiola can put up a passing offense that's exciting and fun to play in, I think that can go a long way for somebody like Michael Terry, who, I like, where Nebraska's at. I don't think they're the favorite, but I think they've got a lot of momentum going in their favor with them, and I think that can go a long way.
A game like that, I know we all have varied opinions of how that game could go. If Nebraska were to have a pretty big visitor list that night, Nebraska plays well, you get to see the pre, the game, the post, and all of the pomp and circumstance leading up to that. Just in your world, Shafe, talking to these guys on a weekly basis, how impactful can just that moment be in trying to win over a recruit?
I mean, I think it's huge. I could make a short list of some of the biggest home games Nebraska's played in the last decade plus, and this would be towards the top of it as far as the opportunity to set yourself up recruiting-wise. I mean, you have a night game that's going to be on NBC. It's a showcase for Dylan Raiola. It's against the most talked-about coach in the country, and Deion Sanders, so you're going to have a lot of eyeballs in that regard. You're going to have a ton of recruits on campus. I mean, it would be wasteful if they don't have upwards of 40, 50, 60 recruits there. You're going to have top guys from the region. You're going to have top guys from the state. You're going to have atmosphere with the fan base that should be absolutely electric. I mean, I cannot think of a game in the last 5 years that has the level of sort of enthusiasm and fervor and bloodlust, if you will, listening to the fan base, that this Nebraska-Colorado one does. So if you package all of that on a Saturday night in September in Memorial Stadium and you're bringing recruits in, I mean, there is every bit the chance that you could create one of the best environments that we've seen in Memorial Stadium in some time, and really jumpstart your 26, your 27 recruiting, maybe give you a chance with some of these other guys that you're still after in 2025. But really, it's a chance for Nebraska to announce that they're back. It really is. Yeah. Even if Colorado's not that great, doing it on that stage is such a huge opportunity, and it's something they have to take advantage of. And you can't overthink it, if you're the Nebraska staff, but in the back of your head, you can set yourself up really nice. Here's the other thing. It's a showcase for Dylan Raiola, which is then a showcase for recruiting and the transfer portal later on.
Shafe, this is a question for you and Nick, and this would be a good one for Gary, too. Everyone talks about that Colorado game. Oh, it's going to be like the 14 Miami game. But sometimes I wonder, because of, especially what you said, the fervor, everything that's going into it, all the side stuff, and just the general excitement, maybe we're thinking of a game further back before then that wasn't the 14 Miami game. I know that was a night game. I know that was all that stuff, but it could end up being bigger in terms of lasting impact if it goes well.
Yeah, I mean, I would put it on the level of the 2011 Ohio State, Nebraska's first home game in the Big Ten era. You had Ohio State coming to town. It obviously wasn't Urban Meyer's Ohio State, as Luke Fickell was the coach at that time. But that was a huge, huge game. And it's also one of those, like, you go back in time a little bit, like the Davis twins were there. A bunch of the future Nebraska players were there. There's a lot of talent on the sidelines that day. Obviously a huge come from behind win that people that were there remember it. But it has that kind of, it has that kind of ability to it, where it can just be a big, big, big deal simply because of what the environment should be. I think, the natural one is 2014 Miami because of just the way people feel about the Colorado team and their coach and the fan base. But, in terms of long-term impact, that Ohio State game, in terms of the recruits that were there that day that ended up on Nebraska's roster, took visits later on, I think it's probably more close to that in what it could be with how they can showcase. I mean, Nebraska got a very big stroke of luck that's a night game. Could you imagine if this is a big noon kickoff? They wouldn't have nearly to the atmosphere, near the amount of recruits. So they absolutely have to take advantage of it from that standpoint.
Shay, I know you're going to be watching a little bit of football this weekend, but your final full weekend without the full slate and without Nebraska football, with you and your lovely wife and little Huddy, who I can hear out there. What do you guys got going on?
I think we're going to take them to Fan Day tomorrow.
Nice. All right.
We probably won't even go through any of the lines or any of the tables, but just walk around, get them in the environment, let them see the sights. He's currently holding a football right now in the back seat, trying to talk to you guys, letting you know his thoughts on things. But I think that's our plan for tomorrow. We'll get him in the Jolly Jumper early. Get him kind of tired, get him for a nap, and then get him to Fan Day and see how he does.
I noticed once we brought up Michael Terry, he really started getting vocal in there. So I can tell on the priority list for Hudson, it is definitely Michael Terry. So Nebraska needs to do something about that.
Well, like Dad, Hudson likes to talk a lot. So hard for other people to get words in.
Shafe, have a great weekend, my man. Always appreciate you jumping on. We will talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Take care. Thanks for having me on.
It's Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7 Sports, and Hudson, the Hudskers, as they like to refer to.
That actually makes me that brings me joy. I feel better now. We got a little Schaefer, a little football, and a little Hudson holding the football.
Well, I'm going to make you feel even better because we're going to rip on a Little League baseball coach coming up next.
Coach, not the kids.
This was something that came out over the weekend, and it gained some traction since you've had the Yankees responding. You've had the Yankee players that are laughing about this for a guy who just felt his team deserved a lot more attention by probably the most recognizable player in the game right now, and Aaron Judge. We'll do that. Also, coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking to Matt Verzal, and we will get to Brian Edwards at the end of the hour before we call it a week here. As we continue here, mornings with Sharp and Handley, 1620 The Zone.
This week's zone deal.
My bad.
Sorry.
My bad.
No, but it's okay.
You got
it. Yeah. This week's zone deal. It's very important we get this in because it's going to happen right now. This week's zone deal is the Woodcliff Restaurant, voted Omaha's best outdoor patio. It's perfect for a romantic dinner for two, or a really big romantic dinner for one, or a family dinner. Or a family dinner for one, if you're into the whole gluttony thing. Enjoy all of Woodcliff's delicious food with a perfect view of Woodcliff Lake. Don't miss Thursday's weekly special burger or Friday's fish special with this week's deal. Get two $25 gift vouchers, a $50 value for just $25 on sale today, right now, 9 a.m. Get all the details, 1620thezone.com. And then, sign up for emails, give us all your information, all that stuff, Social Security, whatever.
Well, one of my favorite fan takes when it comes to pro athletes is, yeah, but we're the ones who pay your salary. So you feel entitled to certain things. I think as you get older in life, you realize that there's more to it than just you buying a ticket to a game or buying a jersey when it comes to paying salaries. Because there's a little thing called TV as well. Those networks, they tend to put out a lot of money that tends to line the pockets of owners and organizations and players as well. But
that's why there's 77 teams in the Big Ten.
There's always that thought, I suppose, that still likes to be shared, and that definitely was the case for the South Shore Little League manager in the Little League World Series, Bob Laturza, who over the weekend when the Detroit Tigers and the New York Yankees played in the Williamsport game, that both teams and a lot of the players had met with all of the teams that were participating in the Little League World Series. And now South Shore Little League, a Staten Island team, was obviously part of that and got a chance to meet Aaron Boone and DJ LeMahieu and some other Yankees. But one guy that the coach had mentioned that was absent when his team got to meet some of the Yankees was Aaron Judge. And that was the day of the night game between the Tigers and the Yankees. And the Bob Laturza, the coach, took some exception with that and said that that number 99 ignored the youths, bellowing his name from some 10 to 20 feet away. He felt that since he didn't show up during the day, even though Aaron Judge was seen with many Little League teams and players throughout their time in Williamsport, well, they had good seats behind essentially the on-deck circle that, okay, well, he can make it up for his absence by turning around and waving to New York, as he said. These are the kids who pay we're the ones who pay your salary.
I didn't know we have that much money.
So you would think maybe he'll want to make up for it and come and see them. So now he's demanding that Aaron Judge, out of his, extremely busy schedule.
He's working right now this time of the year.
Well, and this whole he didn't even acknowledge us in the on-deck circle. There are just certain players that are kind of, as we like to call, maybe this is just a very lazy way of describing it, in the zone. They're looking at the guy on the mound that is throwing 95 plus, and they're figuring out, how they want to attack that pitcher and try to help their team win, which, by the way, the Yankees lost that game. And if you remember, there weren't a lot of runs in that game too. So offense was hard to come by. So I think Aaron Judge probably was trying to figure that little problem out because he is a professional baseball player.
That's what they do.
I'm sorry, man. There are so many good things that come out of Little League World Series and so many good coaches. You get those speeches when the season ends and you got kids that are crying and they have these very good life lesson moment type of speeches. This is
teaching you to throw a tantrum.
Oh my God.
What a great example to set for your players.
Right. And I'm sure he's looking at, well, I've just got my kids back. Were you the one who was more disappointed about this than the kids?
Did the kids even say anything?
Yeah.
The kids even know.
First
of all, if the kids are paying their salary, they should all be living on the beach because they have a lot of money.
That's my favorite part of it is, how about turning it around or wave to New York and the kids that think you're a hero? They are the ones who pay your salary.
Or just hit a home run and they'll be happy. Like, they don't care. You care. You wanted to meet Aaron Judge. You wanted him to wave to you.
I just think now he's like, well, maybe he'll want to make it up for them and come and see them.
No, just for
he's
that.
He's kind of busy.
Actually, he should be like, yeah, I'll come see them if they fire you. Oh, throw the gauntlet down.
Captain America meme. No, I don't think I will.
Well, in the Yankees sense, now they went the PC route as far as, hey, we wish Staten Island success in winning the championship. Win or lose, we intend to invite them to Yankee Stadium. However, it would have been much better if Staten Island's coach called us to understand the facts before bitterly, I like the fact they use that, bitterly reacting in such a public fashion. Reaching out to us would have been the prudent way to act and would have set a fine example for his young players.
Not just that, because I'm petty and because I hold grudges as much as anybody you'll ever meet. I say the Yankees should say, we'd love to have the team over. In fact, Aaron Judge would like to talk to each one of you personally. Hugs, pictures, points, and everything, but the coach stays home. Yeah. You leave his ass on Staten Island.
And as he mentioned that Aaron Boone was present for a little bit of, or hanging around that Staten Island team for a moment. He just said when he was asked about that guy's comments, he's like, I'm not even going to dignify myself to a response. Aaron Judge, he says, is as good as it gets. And I think everybody has always looked at Aaron Judge in a similar manner of, hell of a player, but also kind of a class dude that just because your feelings were hurt because a guy actually has a schedule to keep and he's a professional, well, I don't care about that. I mean, come on, man.
What would Lee Elliott or Jim Leland think? Lou Piniella, Earl Weaver. They're lucky Aaron Boone, or he's lucky Aaron Boone was full of class.
Well, yeah, Aaron Boone has been known to go off
Billy
a little
Martin?
bit, and I think Aaron Boone was probably biting his tongue. If it was maybe a team that wasn't in New York, maybe it would be different.
Yesterday was the 83rd birthday of that great American hero / coach Bill Parcells. What if this guy had mouthed off to Bill Parcells about, well, LT didn't come say hi to my guy? That wouldn't have gone well.
Oh God, there's just some people, and it's especially the cringeworthy moments in Little League World Series.
He just made
sadly
it all about
enough usually come from the adults.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly enough, it comes from the adults.
It's all about him.
It's just a reminder of that. All right, 9 o'clock hour we go. We're going to be talking to Matt Verzal and Brian Edwards as we continue here on 1620 The Zone. And looking forward to being out at Oscars next Thursday as our Red Out Week continues on. A little roundtable discussion. We'll have Connor Happer and the Connor Happer Show out there, as well as Unsportsmanlike Conduct.
You guys should do an eating competition.
Another Nick Grimm hot dog time
That's
challenge.
Right.
Hey,
I can get behind this.
You know how fast
Good job,
I could
Peter.
have done that? That would have been. I never
go
understood
all in, Nick.
that.
No, yeah, go all in.
Never
Battle of the
understood
Knicks.
that. Oh, I'd have that thing done in a matter of seconds.
If he commits to it today, he'll have almost a week to mentally prepare.
This is the one thing about when you golf and you make the turn and you're getting the hot dog, and before. I usually like to have it, taken care of before I get to the 10th hole. I mean,
the hot dog?
Yeah, the hot dog.
It takes you 10 holes to eat a hot dog?
No, on the turn. So when you get to 9,
got you. Okay, I got you.
You stop,
okay.
and then you go grab a hot dog.
That makes sense.
And then by the time you get to the 10th, it's gone.
Oh, yeah.
It was taking like almost an entire show for him to eat it. Come on,
I thought
you
get a knife and a fork like he's eating a damn prime rib. Hell, I got Thanksgiving dinner here. Let me just hold on. Portion control.
God,
that's a big thing.
I didn't know that was such a foreign food object.
And Peter, this was a normal size hot dog?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
2 bites, tops? What do you think?
Easy. Yeah, easy. But I don't know if I could do a hot dog in 1 bite.
Oh, yeah. There are some people that are that talented.
Yes,
you used to be able to watch those.
You could watch them on
Netflix.
Netflix.
Of Nebraska went and, said you can't watch those things anymore.
That I could probably see
This
the
is
pizza,
like name
the
that tune.
pizza's so good, but I could probably demolish a lot of wings. I remember last time we did this, the spring game roundtable. I took down quite a few wings fast. Like it was very, very fast.
You're a big wing guy.
Their
Me
wings,
too.
Their wings
And
are
Oscars,
very, very good.
They're fantastic.
They know how to do it.
Yes, they do.
are fantastic.
Yes, we do. That's where Connor Happer Show and Unsportsmanlike Conduct, and all of us will be there for the roundtable too. So I look forward to that on Thursday.
Your favorite zone personalities can feed you.
Yeah, or just feed and watch them, and
watch them eat.
We can
come watch.
We can be the entertainment.
Watch each other eat.
Sit in front of the rectangle table that the round table will be at. Like sit right there, not so much in the splash zone, and stare at your favorite zone personalities eat.
I'm sure it's probably not a very pleasant sight to watch me eat wings.
Make them feel like they're at the
very
zoo.
Fast.
Ooh,
and then I like to get a little ranch involved in it too. So at the end of the day, is there a dignified way to eat wings? No, but I don't think anybody cares.
But nobody's eating wings to be like, oh no, I don't want to get it on my fingers.
No, it's just
get it all over, rub it, war paint.
Go to the bathroom afterwards and wash your hands.
I stopped caring about how I looked when I ate wings a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it makes it all the more enjoyable.
And I still ended up married. So did Nick. So we're good.
Then my wife quit eating wings, which I wonder if that had something to do with it.
Watching you.
Is there a correlation?
She doesn't like to eat wings anymore, but that wasn't the case when we first met. So maybe that does have something to do with it. Hey, big shout to Spencer Schwellenbach, former Husker pitcher, who again looked really good last night. Got himself a W over Philly. That's impressive.
Happy Josh Hodson today.
Yeah, Schwelly is
kind of just hanging around in the NL East.
Actually, the Happer Show is just going to be a show of happiness.
Well, Gary and I were talking about this
Braves.
off the air one day. We both thought, they'd call up Schwellenbach, he'd be back down in the minors at some point. But man, that dude,
he's going to stay.
Watching him as a closer and a two-way player for Nebraska, and then turn into a legitimate starting pitcher at the Major League Baseball level. It's really, really cool. He always had the arm strength, but the mechanics have now been refined. He's got the stamina to, give you, as he did last night, 6 2/3.
That's pretty good.
Schwelly's doing some stuff.
That's
doing
like 15
some
innings
Braves.
now. Nobody pitches that long anymore.
Well, at some point,
6 2/3.
see what he did last night. That would qualify. He'd be able to stay in for the 6 innings that they're going to at some point try to require starting pitchers to pitch at least 6 innings.
Quality start's going to be 1 inning.
That's but good on him. Hey, I just saw this the Pro Football Focus Big Ten quarterback rankings came out. Do you guys have a idea of where one Dylan Raiola would be? Now, remember, this is Pro Football Focus, so you got to go off of things you've seen, and then there's the future metrics or the predictable metrics.
I will say they have him ranked right now 8.
That would actually be very high. Now, that's where he has been in a lot of the power rankings of the Big Ten quarterbacks from multiple publications.
Because this is before he plays a game, so calm down.
Right.
Hold on.
Now, this could be bulletin board material. He comes in at number 12.
12 was my next guess. I'm not kidding.
Behind him, you got Max Brosmer, the transfer to Minnesota. Cade McNamara, 14. See, it's not all bad for Cade. Alex Sorgi from Michigan. Oh, there he is. The Greek rifle himself, Athan Kaliakmanis at 16. Billy Edwards Jr. Again, it's somebody other than
who?
Talia Tagovailoa, Maryland's quarterback.
Oh.
And then Mike Wright of Northwestern. Doesn't that just sound like the most Northwestern quarterback? Mike Wright.
Yeah.
Mike Wright. All right. He comes in at number 18. We
Go
just haven't
see
seen him.
Mike Wright with Farm Bureau Financial Services.
28.
Dylan Ryle comes in behind Aiden Childs at 11th for Michigan State, the Oregon State transfer, and Ethan Garbers from UCLA. So number one, I think everybody would agree this is probably pretty accurate, is Dylan Gabriel. And then you've got Drew Aller of Penn State, Tyler Van Dyke of Wisconsin, number 3, according to Pro Football Focus. Miller Moss, SC's quarterback. Will Howard of Ohio State.
Miller Moss sounds like a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, I can see that. Will Rogers of Washington is behind Will Howard. And then you've got Curtis Rourke of Indiana at number 7, Hudson Card at number 8, Luke Altmaier of Illinois at number 9.
That's fair.
Yeah,
so this is all fair. That's fine.
So Dylan finally didn't have the Pro Football Focus or somebody throwing the flowers at the feet of a top 10 quarterback. But
this has taught me that I was not aware of almost half the quarterbacks going into the season in
Same.
the Big Ten.
He said
much
Billy
more
Edwards.
Much more turnover than I thought.
He said Billy Edwards. I thought he meant Billy D. Williams.
I will
Great
be
Lando Calrissian.
Those two guys right there, 17 and 18. I honestly did not know who the quarterbacks were going to be for both Maryland and Northwestern.
But I will remember Mike Wright.
Mike Wright and Billy Edwards Jr.
Mike Wright will be slinging it on the waterfront.
And will it even be Cade McNamara? Will it be former Northwestern quarterback Brennan Sullivan? That could be the quarterback for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Could the wind blow one of those passes into Lake Michigan? That's what I want to know. Or an errant punt on a very windy day, although that would mean the wind is blowing out and it's probably very warm at the lakefront.
I was talking to Josh Peterson yesterday. He's going to do some BTN stuff, some spotting, and I think the first game he has is at Tiny Baby Stadium.
Ooh.
Is at the little Northwestern
This is
Stadium.
interesting.
He's going to go to Tiny Baby Stadium?
Yep, he gets to be at
So
Northwestern's
somebody
Tiny
gets to
Baby
go to
Stadium.
Tiny Baby Stadium. That's good.
I know.
Because Gary couldn't go.
I told him I was very jealous. My in should always be that my brother-in-law lives in Skokie, which is essentially Evanston.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, I think, 10 minutes away from their neighborhood.
2
at
hours
least in
with Chicago
Northwestern.
traffic.
Yes. That's why it's good to be on the Skokie side, because then you don't have to deal with that. Going from Skokie or the suburb into Northwestern,
Can you
like
take
10
the
minutes. You probably could. I'm sure there's a train going
Right. As long as there's not a one-armed man trying to kill you on the train.
I
know,
legitimately want to talk to my wife and suggest hey, let's go visit
Go
them,
with him, go visit Josh.
and then we'll watch the Tiny Baby Stadium.
You guys should go. Get credentialed.
I know we can't go that weekend because it's this upcoming weekend.
Oh.
I can't do Big Red overreaction while I'm in Evanston.
Or could he?
No.
Because
I think
Vegas
it's like
hotels.
I think it's Northwestern and Akron. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
E.
I would like to see a Northwestern conference game there. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That is romantic, though.
It's just one of those things that you're not going to see very often. And it's probably not going to be like this great thing, but you just got to, I feel like you got to experience it. Yeah.
I picture Josh now in this booth like Leroy Neiman.
Oh, I think it's
Look
going
him
to
up. They're just painting a picture of the lakefront.
I'm going to have, I bet they're going to have the smallest booth ever. I can only imagine.
Everybody in one room.
Now, yeah. Cause I mean,
Sit on his lap.
you
I just
have
met
to
him.
you have to accommodate the TV. So Big Ten Network in this situation,
some radio.
Then you're going to have, I would assume, both radio announcers,
all of Chicago media that'll be there.
How big can that press box at Tiny Baby Northwestern Stadium possibly even be? So I think it's going to be a cramped situation. So I don't envy anybody that has to be confined to the press box itself.
Mm-hmm.
But for people that are sitting out there, it won't be sold out.
Some things never change.
I don't think it'll be sold out.
We would go.
I'd love to go.
Just to look at the lake.
See, if Nebraska was on Northwestern's schedule this year,
I don't think they'd be playing
there. They
there,
wouldn't
though.
be playing there. No, they would not be playing there. Because if I look at their schedule right now,
because they have Ohio State and Illinois are at Wrigley.
Right. Yes.
Which even then you could argue it'd be kind of small. Wrigleyville will be a happening place.
Oh yeah, totally.
Usually is.
Let's see. What would be the best game to go to for Northwestern at Tiny Baby Wildcat Stadium? It would be
the Litter Box.
Oh, sorry, it's Miami of Ohio, so they play.
Oh,
another
our mistake.
Yeah. I love how it's called Northwestern Medicine Field at Martin Stadium.
Stadium's longer than the size of the stadium.
They do have Duke there.
Oh, the Nerd Bowl.
No more Mike Elko though. They will play Indiana at Tiny Baby Martin Stadium.
We like Signetti. That would be our game, I think.
When is that? Is that on? That is on October 5th. Then you've
I
got
nothing going there.
Wow.
Day.
Okay, so they're playing Wisconsin.
Ooh.
At Tiny Baby Martin Stadium.
That's tough.
That's on the 19th.
Yeah, I might have to go with the Wisconsin game.
Yeah, Wrigley for Ohio State, Illinois Wrigley. Yep, so that's it. So your options would be, if you're looking for a conference game like I am, Wisconsin, I think, would be your winner.
This is October 19th, you said?
That is October 19th, yeah.
2 weeks earlier, you got Indiana. These are good choices.
Indiana on the 5th.
You would miss the Rutgers game here.
Right.
Aren't they off the 19th, the Huskers?
The 12th.
They're off the 12th.
Yep.
Okay.
On what is going to be a sweet college football slate.
That's right.
What a fantastic draw to get that as an off week.
But they do
Everyone's
get
getting
three
married that
guys
day.
to get 3 games out of the gate at Tiny Baby Northwestern Medicine Field at Martin Stadium. They get Miami, Duke, not Miami of Ohio, that is, Duke and Eastern Illinois before they have to leave Tiny Baby Stadium.
It'll be like that Woodcliff read I just did. Lakefront, a meal.
I really want to go there.
Woodcliff or the Tiny Baby
Well,
Stadium?
both.
Yeah.
Both. Why not? Why do both in the same weekend?
Didn't SBH say Woodcliff is legit?
Could go to Woodcliff on Friday.
Yeah.
Head out to Evanston Saturday morning, catch a game, and then come back.
See if the Bears are at home on the 6th
Bears
or
could play on
20th.
Sunday. Yeah, just make a weekend of it.
Damn, Nick, you got something going here.
It all starts at Woodcliff.
He's got something brewing.
You got family connections there, so you can always word it that way. Like, you know what? We need to see family more.
I'm sure tickets are going to be just crazy. Just crazy. All right, Matt Verzal joins us coming up after this. Also, Brian Edwards, as he's got some weekend college football plays that we will let you in on. That all is happening next year on 1620 The Zone.
Every day I'm hustling.
Matt Versa.
You know, Matt, he's a tremendous athlete.
Matt Versa.
All right, Matt, thank you very much.
Every day I'm hustling.
Come on, Matt.
We've made it to that time of the college football offseason where we are talking week 0. We're not talking about Nebraska in week 0, but we're talking about college football starting. It is the best time of the year, and it gets even better next week. Vers, how are you, my man?
What is up, boys? How we doing?
Hey, I was going to ask you, am I going to see you out in Eagle today? I'm golfing in your nephew's golf outing.
I am in the middle right now of making 160 pieces. I got here at 3 a.m.
Wow.
So the odds of me making that and being presentable are not very good.
Hey, sometimes that's the best way.
I will be there in spirit. There will be a Paisan team representing. So
okay.
Yeah.
Can I
watch out for the boys in the black hat?
Black hats. Okay. I want to know who's going to be around our foursome because we're joining a twosome. So I didn't know if that was maybe Matt Verzel was in that twosome. So
I think you might be joining Les Vogler.
Okay. All right.
Who else are you playing with?
Ben McLaughlin.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
You're playing with Les. You're playing with Les, which I think Nebraska is missing a huge marketing opportunity for baseball.
Yeah.
Les Vogler has Vogler Seaman Center. So my vision is the Nebraska bullpen presented to you by the Vogler Seaman Center.
I love it. Put it on the board. I love it.
I think that's an easy 50, 60. I mean, if Chick-fil-A gets to do the foul poles, what's the difference?
Exactly. Now, do we know is Les a big hitter? Because we're trying to win this thing.
Les will not be playing. Les will be consuming.
All right, this is my kind of group already.
He will have his own cart with his beautiful wife, and then I think you're playing with his brother and his buddy.
Okay.
So
I love it. That's going to be fun stuff. So Vers, we've reached that time of camp where game prep is already in. Last time we talked to you, you mentioned maybe a fight or two would break out. Guys are seeing red a little bit. So now you've kind of gotten through that. Is this where that mentality shifts of, okay, it's real. This is where we are. And this is the fun part.
Yeah. You have a light at the end of the tunnel. Like camp is excruciatingly long. That's just the way the world is now. It just drags and drags and drags. So those guys got to be super excited to know that, another week and a day, you're going to get to hit someone that's not on your team. So that will be the emphasis and the onus and preparation. And this is where a lot of you've done all the physical you can. And now you're into getting your mental preparation. Are you getting in your film? Are you watching what they do, how they operate, those kind of things? So it's just, pays in the barn.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much more you need to or can do with it. It's just almost go time.
Vers, when you played, when did that mentality in you shift to where you went from, I'm so sick and tired of this, all right, game week, let's go. I feel better now. I feel a new life.
You're still sick and tired of it the week leading up to practice or leading up to the game, because you still got another week of, I think at Georgia they call them Bloody Tuesday.
Yeah.
But you have a Tuesday that'll be hell. You have a Wednesday that'll be hell. Thursday's a walkthrough, and then you're just kind of counting down the practices before you get to go. So yeah, that it. Like I say a lot of times, it's a mean game played by mean people, and you can be as nice as you want to be off the field, but when you're on that field, be it with practice or a game, you can be the biggest a-hole you want to be. So hopefully those guys have that mentality. I know Mazuka was at the podium, and he said some great things that made me very happy. Yeah. And now you just get the chance to go out and prove that that's how you live and that's what you're about. So it'll be fun to watch.
Vers, I'm glad you brought him up. He comes across as kind of a bad dude in a good way. And we think of this offensive line, and I mean, you know that position so well, having played it, you coach it as well. And having guys that are a little bit more that mentality too, I think it's refreshing. I'm hoping it works out well for him, but he being a new addition to this, and based on what we've heard, and he brought it up a lot of when he first got there, he mentioned, the biggest adjustment was the standard, and they keep talking about the standard. I'm trying to imagine maybe where he struggled with the most, but where now it sounds like he's on a good path of not only back to that standard that they're holding him accountable for, and even what Donnie Raiola is holding him accountable for, but also being the guy that I think they desperately need at that guard position. When you think of how this offensive line is coming together, with the exception of that question mark at left tackle because of the injury to Teddy Prohaska and just Turner Corcoran being sort of a turnstile, what is your confidence level with those guys, especially at guard?
It's a deal. Yeah, I'm on the telephone. It's a deal where, okay, here's the thing with football. People think you want to go through and I'm going to prep for this guy, pepperoni. I'm going to prep for this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. You're going to watch them, and you're going to see what they want to do. And then inside of your skill set, you are going to realize they cannot beat me. I can only beat myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? He possesses that brain capacity. I've said also, this isn't about physical. This isn't about scheme. This is about rewiring their brains instead of saying, oh my God, we're playing X, Y, or Z. It's, I am going to go out and do what I need to do to win.
Mm-hmm.
And my coaches have taught me the rant where Rule stopped practice and said, we're not doing this in front of the fans because you're showboating, which is basically what he was intimating.
Right.
You're not doing the little things, the practice things. If he gets to the mic or the podium and he feels confident enough in himself to say, yeah, I don't worry about people. They're going to have to worry about me.
Mm-hmm.
He is very, very firm in his belief. That is the mindset you want to use to play the game. If you're intimidated by an opponent, then don't go out there. And he isn't. I think it was a very refreshing thing to hear just on kind of how they operate mentally now.
Yeah.
First, Dylan was named the starter the other day. No surprise there, but we've talked a lot about him throughout the course of the summer, basically since he committed. Your thoughts on Dylan being named the starter, and finally it's go time, and the time for talk is over.
I mean, he's your best option.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can we can all say, oh man, this, that, the other, and it's a real quarterback. And then no disrespect to Harburg. I think Harburg is the best athlete that they have on the team, and I can't wait to see how they use him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But this is a true quarterback, so now you're going to get to see, hey, this is what we have to do to be successful. We've got to keep him vertical. We've got to make sure if he decides to tuck it and run, there's 5 linemen running, there's tight ends coming down the block just to make sure we're not taking big hits. It's a mentality. Like, people will talk about him physically and that he's gifted and that he does all these things. His mentality is that of a winner. He has utmost confidence of self. And as long as he's out there leading, correcting things that need to be corrected, because he has a very good grasp of the offense from everything I've heard, that's what you want your quarterback to be. You want your best 11 players on the field. You don't care, per se, what they even sometimes position they're at, but it's good to have one of your best or one of your leaders at your quarterback spot, which is what Dylan has done a great job of.
Verse, I know you got to bounce out. I wanted to end with this though, because, and we can talk more about this next week before the actual game, but early impressions and taking this back to the offensive line. If there's something that comes out of the UTEP game that you in particular are watching, because I get this question a lot, is how do we start trusting this offensive line, and what are the things that you would want to see just out of the gate against a UTEP defensive line that's not bad? Is there a stat you should be keen on? Is there something your eyes should be telling you if this group is going to take a step forward collectively?
I think the thing, probably an easier way for me to answer this is just to say what I'll be watching is where first contact is made. If they run the ball, is the first contact by a defender 2 yards down the field? Is it 3 yards down the field? Is it hopefully not in the backfield?
Mm-hmm.
That's really all you have to watch. And there's a great book out there on how to actually watch football. But it just tells you, watch the line for 2 to 3 seconds. You'll know if the play is successful or not.
Yeah.
And it holds true. And so that's the only thing I'll be watching.
Verz, appreciate you joining us. Keep them going, man. Sounds like it's going to be quite the day, but appreciate you coming on, man. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, boys. Have a good one. Have fun at the tourney if I don't see you.
We'll do. Thanks, Matt. That is Matt Verzal, former Husker there. And that is, it's a
160 pizzas.
Yeah, that's
wow.
a lot. That's a lot. There must
That's a lot of pie.
There must be an event going on.
Lunch.
With Paisans.
And I want to go to it.
That is fantastic. I have a feeling that if there's a Paisan team there, that maybe we'll have a Paisan pie or two for golf today.
Go.
But
you have a great day.
There is I've been getting this question, or at least this concern, from a lot of people when it comes to left tackle, when it comes to the offensive line. When we talk about Nebraska trying to regain the trust with the fan base. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it usually starts with the offensive line, regardless of the strength, regardless of the season that Bryce Benhart had last year, and the fact that Ben Scott was pretty stable, pretty solid. I think there's a lot of excitement around Justin Evans in the time that we saw him last year. Micah Mazuka, as Verz was talking about too, he just kind of has a little ass kicker mentality in him. And he's right. There was just some things that he said when he was at the podium this week where you're like, okay, cool, yeah, I feel you. Like there's just a little bit of that in him. I don't know if
he would not be fun to line up against.
No, and he is a large man. He is a large individual. The whole idea of Turner Corcoran with a lot to prove, and he does. He has a lot to prove, but I think a lot of people are going to be skeptical until they see it. And then if, heaven forbid something would happen to him, then you get extremely young and inexperienced at that position. But what you're trying to take away from the first couple of games, and this was a point that was brought up by, actually go up to Redwine in the comments section, where he said they won't stack the box, so running lanes will be open. D won't battle uphill all game as far as talking about UTEP. I think that there is that part of what to take away from the first game and offensive line play. I don't know if we'll truly know when this group is a vastly improved group or just a collectively altogether or aligned group until
you see it. And even then it'll be further down the line.
I think so too. I think the game that I would say, boy, this is where you get a really good tell. No disrespect to Illinois or Purdue, but probably Rutgers. As far as their defensive line goes.
That's a sneaky good game. I'm not talking about just here, local. I'm talking about period.
Yeah, it's that game is it's going to be a lot.
If you like ball, that's a good game that you will enjoy.
But
I think it'll be at 2:30 that day.
But
CBS.
And I say that because I think that's your first real test with what is a pretty good front seven. But that's not to say you can't take anything away from the first 5 games that Nebraska plays. There's going to be unique challenges in all of those that what the offensive line is going to say. That's why I asked Verz of, what are you looking for? And he simplified it as easy as what you're seeing from point of contact, which that is something that I think we want to start looking at technique and how people move their feet and pass pro and all that.
That's why we ask him, because he would know that.
But what's the initial just point of contact will be interesting. We're going to wrap things up. Brian Edwards, typically on a Thursday, but we had some connection issues yesterday. So he's kind enough to join us on a Friday. We'll get some of his upcoming college football plays both this weekend and next weekend as B-Eds wraps a week up for us here on 1620 The Zone.
Yeah, if you really love.
It's that time, usually on a Thursday, but we were having some technical issues getting hooked up with our next guest, Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider, joining us on a Football Friday Fiesta. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. How y'all doing?
Great, because I looked at your sheet, and we're not talking about futures as far as win totals. We got matchups, man. We got matchups that we're starting to get into. Right out of the gate, I want to get with the LSU USC game that you're looking at right now when it comes to not necessarily on the point spread itself, but also we're looking at the over-under at 63. So where are you starting off with this one?
Well, most books are at 63.5, but you're correct in that I bought the half point. 263, obviously a multiple of 7 being a key number on a total. I will be at this game at Allegiant Stadium next Sunday night in Las Vegas. And, I'm going to go with the over. Two of the worst Power 5 defenses last year, one of the worst defenses LSU has fielded in recent memory. Probably have to go back to the Jerry DiNardo or even the Curly Hallman eras to find an LSU defense that was so poor, and similar for USC. Now, they both have new defensive coordinators. Blake Baker from Missouri for LSU, Alex Grinch out at USC, Anthony Lynn's son in from UCLA. I thought that was a good hire, but Lincoln Riley's teams just do not play defense. So I'm going over 63. Now, the side, LSU was favored by 6.5 nearly all summer, basically all summer, anywhere from 6.5 to 6. And it moved suddenly from 6.5 to 4 a couple of days ago. Now it clicked back up to 4.5 real quick. But the side is a pass for me. I mean, I think LSU wins, but I've bet on LSU in the season opener 3 years in a row and lost twice to FSU and at UCLA coming up on 3 years now. And they've actually lost outright in 4 season openers in a row. So, I mean, I think LSU is going to win, but I'm not going to lose money for 4 straight year in their opener. So I'm going to just go over 63 on that one.
You took Georgia Tech plus 14 tomorrow, Georgia Tech, Florida State in Dublin, and you like kind of where the numbers are now as they come in. You still like the Yellow Jackets a little bit in that one.
Well, I obviously
not to win
better about my 14, but as the numbers are now, I prefer the over right now at 55.5. Georgia Tech had a lot of high-scoring games last year with Haynes King. They're able to score points, but he also led the ACC in interceptions. I have questions about FSU skill players. A lot of new, faces. DJU, obviously his third school. We'll see how they are offensively, but I think they'll be able to score on Georgia Tech. Not very salty defensively. And FSU has the advantage in the trenches. So I think they'll be able to run the ball effectively. And I think we'll get the over. But again, I kind of got a wimpy bet at plus 14. I'm really kicking myself for not getting, more aggressive there. But as construed, I would still like Georgia Tech catching double digits since Brent Key took over. They are 6-3 against the spread with 4 outright wins in 9 games. As double-digit underdogs. So I'm on the over and a little on Georgia Tech. Obviously, I feel better about my 14 position.
SMU, Nevada tomorrow night. This one will be obviously it's a big number for SMU, and I'm curious if that number, as it's elevated a little bit, does that make you a little bit more wanting to stay away from it, or do you like the new ACC power SMU against Nevada to cover that number of 27?
So I would not be involved in this game in any way whatsoever if this was a full slate of games, but I like to gamble. It's a standalone game.
That's why we have you on.
The first half line, if you can still get 14. Now, I see there's still 14s at Circa, the Westgate Superbook, and South Point. Looks like most other books are 14.5 in the first half. I don't know that I'd do that. It looks like all the offshores are 14.5. And shame on my phone yesterday, as it was just not cooperating whatsoever. Because yesterday
had we spoken, there were all 14s on the first half line, and I would have said, get that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at 24.5 on the side. And I would say by the half point to 24 and go with the Mustangs. But now, this line had been 27.5, moved down to 24 briefly and 24.5. I want to say I think it was Tuesday, but now it picked back up to 26. There's a 25.5 at DraftKings. I prefer the minus 14 in the first half if you can get that. But if you got to play it, I'd say SMU or just maybe hold off and look for a live line. Maybe Nevada will get off to a good start or something, and maybe we can get, a better number, smaller number. But yeah, if you got to play it pregame, I would do SMU, but I prefer the minus 14 in the first half.
Miami and Florida. Now, this one again, we're looking at if you can possibly get Miami. Get the Gators, which this is very unlike you. To get the Gators plus the 3. Right now, I'm seeing it at 2.5. So, is that where you kind of draw the line on this one?
Yeah, I since it's not a strong opinion. You guys know my big plays in week 1 are Georgia and Virginia Tech.
Yep.
But if you can get a 3, there's a couple of 3s offshore. It looks like all the Vegas folks are 2.5. DraftKings was 3 yesterday, but now it's 2.5 over minus 115 to Miami. So maybe buying the hook for Florida at DraftKings, maybe it wouldn't be quite as expensive. Maybe you get minus 125 doing that or so. I just got to go with Florida at home again. Not a big opinion. I just think Miami is getting all this preseason hype, like I feel like they have been most of the last 20 years, and they've never won an ACC championship since they came into the conference. I think they've only been to the championship game once and got their brains beaten in, if memory serves. So yeah, I like Graham Mertz, and I like the home crowd of the Swamp. Cam Ward's been playing in the Pac-12 and FCS before that. He's never been in an environment like the Swamp when the Gators have 0 losses and the fans aren't pissed off yet.
Yeah, that's right. I still think, though, 6-6 that with that schedule could be okay. But, hey, I don't know.
Nope.
Not even a gray area.
Not okay.
As Brian
Not
Edwards,
okay.
our Vegas insider, will be doing this every Thursday. B, always appreciate it. Thanks for being flexible today as well, man. Have a great weekend.
Y'all as well. Thanks, guys.
All right, there we go.
There'll be a Gator hot board, I think he'll have later in a few months.
Yep.
We'll have some good fun with that.
And as he mentioned, his big plays right there were Georgia and Virginia Tech. They're in week 1. Virginia Tech right now would be laying 13.5 on the road against Vanderbilt, and then Georgia is laying 14 against Clemson, which will be played at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in
he said
Atlanta.
He's heavy on that one.
Yes.
In Atlanta.
He's like Georgia and Virginia Tech on that as well. Big thanks to all of our guests on the show today: Brett Ciancia, Jeff Colhane, Mike Schaefer, Verz, and Brian Edwards. Radio
Hudson.
Replay. Yes, and Hudson. Radio Replay is open for you. Anything you missed or anything you want to hear again. Also, we're going to be back at full strength. We got all of the crew back here on Monday as we kick off Husker game week. That's right. But we'll have college football to rehash as well, as we look forward to doing that. The crossover coming up next, the Connor Happer Show and Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Here to wrap up the week here on 1620 The Zone.
Play well today, Nick.
I will do my best. For Jimmy, for Peter, I'm Nick. Appreciate you tuning in to Mornings with Sharp and Handley here on 1620 The Zone.